with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest $500 billion in the U.S. economy.
The CEO of SoftBank pledging to invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
This is President Trump delivering on the promise he made to the American people on the campaign trail.
The idea is come to America, build greatness in America, build for American customers.
Project Stargate.
It's a joint venture between SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, and they're going to create a data center that will eventually be expanded to other states.
Shows people are listening to Mr. Trump's pitch to bring new industry to America.
This is the latest pledge from a foreign business leader promising to spend big in the U.S. as a result of Trump's election victory.
Founder of the property development company DeMac Properties is pledging the money.
President Trump announcing $100 billion investment from Taiwan Semiconductor, bringing the company's total American investments to $165 billion.
The most powerful.
The thing about all of this that I am still genuinely confused by is that as a leftist, okay, I am not against trade protectionist moves. I'm not a free trader, okay? As much as I love how much China has been able to develop as a consequence of that free trade, I'm not a free trader, okay? I'm not. So I'm not inherently anti-tariffs. This is something that I have talked about quite frequently on this broadcast ever since the tariff stuff happened. Having said that, there's two things that don't make any sense. One, broad tariffs across the board against every single country is insane. It's just stupid. It's just not it doesn't make sense. It literally does not make sense from a right-wing perspective. It does not make sense from a left-wing perspective. It just simply does not make sense. I'm sorry. I know Giannis Varoufakis tries to find like the 5D chess move behind all of this, but like it still does not make sense. The reason why it doesn't make sense is because some materials are not, they just don't exist here, okay? Some of the goods that we need to bring into the country simply do not exist in the United States of America. A lot of goods that maybe used to be previously manufactured in the United States of America don't get manufactured in the United States of America any longer, so there's no competent, competitive domestic manufacturing capabilities in this country. So this is precisely the reason why it kind of doesn't make sense. Like, it makes sense for the UAW to be on board with these tariffs because they are a domestic car manufacturer. Okay? If the goal ultimately is to beef up U.S. manufacturing, then great. Obviously, I have issues with that as well because I wish that, and this is not about the UAW, but more so like Ford and all these American manufacturers, like I wish they would also focus their efforts on making perhaps maybe smaller cars, safer cars, nicer cars in general, electric vehicles that are competitive with like the Chinese EV scene. It's impossible to do at this point regardless, but like, you know, those are different issues. But in terms of the pure economics of this, I understand why a Bernie Sanders style presidency would engage in a similar act. They'd probably get assassinated before they fucking completed it. But I understand why someone would do trade protectionism, especially as it pertains to competitive domestic manufacturing capability having sectors like cars. Okay? One of the few, it's basically one of the few industries that exists in this country that is not about making baby murder machines. Ironically enough, you can make the argument that cars are baby murder machines because they're so high and so large, so they definitely run over pedestrians, specifically pedestrians under a certain height, i.e. children. But that's not the point I'm making right now. That's not the point I'm making currently. I'm not going to be making that point. But it still doesn't make sense what he's doing. It does not.
AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
Things happen so quickly in the Trump world, right? It's 100 days. Right. It feels like it's 100 months. This is leadership. This is taking control of the problem for military, for everything, for industrial, for our economy. Even if it causes short-term pain, the reality is it is the right decision.
NVIDIA says it will invest hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years, part of the manufacturing renaissance under President Donald J. Trump.
Furniture maker Prepack are shifting their operations from Canada to North Carolina.
Johnson & Johnson.
UAW fucked people supporting Trump? No. The UAW does not broadly support Trump. The UAW, on the other hand, does support these tariffs, specifically ones that are placed upon car manufacturers. The reason why the UAW supports that is because it is comprised, not entirely, but a big chunk of UAW is, as is the name, United Auto Workers. They are auto manufacturers, an auto manufacturing labor union. Yeah, of course they're going to support trade protectionism that will inevitably yield larger and larger initiatives to build more automobiles in the United States of America. Why wouldn't they support that? That makes sense. Yeah, that part makes sense. I don't even have necessarily an issue with the automobile tariffs in general. Will it lead to price increases? Yes, unless you also force these companies not to increase their prices. I don't know if Donald Trump is going to be able to do that. Who knows? Okay. And then you have a potential capital strike. There's just a lot of complications here because any kind of inherently anti-profit initiative that you engage in a country like the United States of America is going to have a lot of backlash and a lot of issues. Okay. Having said that, this right here, like what he's doing is the weirdest way to implement these tariffs because they're broad tariffs across the board, country by country. It's not even sector specific. It's not industry specific. It just does not make sense.
Johnson says it will invest more than $55 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years.
Hyundai announced a $20 billion.
It especially doesn't make sense because we're talking about Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump obviously is an anti-NAFTA president. He ran and successfully won because he was anti-NAFTA. And then when he did actually win the first term, he basically did NAFTA too. He continued free trade with Canada and Mexico. Ironically enough, Trump too, he has a different attitude now, okay? Because he did that. He did another version of NAFTA when he was the president. That was the first thing that he implemented, okay? The USMCA. Now, what's interesting about this is this time it seems like he's trying to go against that. But it doesn't make sense as to why he would go against that because you're a right-wing guy. Like, why are you anti-free trade? It's shocking. I'm anti-free trade. Trump shouldn't be. But even when he's anti-free trade, he's not even anti-free trade in the appropriate way. He's still anti-free trade in a way where it does not make any sense. It especially doesn't make sense when you consider the fact that Donald Trump also is not pro-labor. He's not pro-labor unions at all. He literally stopped the collective bargaining capacity for 1 million plus federal workers a couple weeks ago. Like 2 weeks ago, he did that with a stroke of a pen. It's crazy.
Investment.
With your leadership, Mr. President, Hyundai Motor Group is proud to be a stronger partner in America's industrial future.
This is the automobile industry.
Could you explain your view on free trade? I think that collaborative trade is great. It's fantastic, but obviously a big part of why American manufacturing output was eviscerated, with the exception of, like, I guess, national defense. And even then, you have a lot of cutouts where you can work with American allies, which happens to be the entire country. I mean, the entire planet, with the exception of, I guess, like China, Iran, Cuba, and a couple countries like Venezuela. Like, there is no manufacturing base in this country. There used to be. It's important to have factories. Look at fucking Germany. Do you see what I'm saying? Look at Germany. Why is Germany still the industrial powerhouse that is the economic engine that drives the European Union? It's because they still have factories. They still have jobs. They still have things that they're building. And obviously, it isn't lol. Wait, what? Dude, no. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what would be the industrial heart of Europe in that regard. Germany is losing? Yeah, no shit. I know Germany's losing. That's not my point. That's not what I'm saying. Shut up. Oh my God. That's a different sentence. I never said Germany is growing all the time and it's great, okay? The German economy is great. I said Germany, as it stands, is still very much the industrial powerhouse of Europe. It is the economic engine that drives Europe. And the reason for that is because they still have manufacturing capabilities. But my point is that ultimately NAFTA and these kinds of free trade agreements eviscerated, they destroyed the American working class. They did. And that built a lot of resentment against the Democrats, who were seen as being responsible for implementing these free trade agreements, ironically enough, even though it is a uniparty principle. And it was certainly backed by the Republicans initially. So for that reason, Donald Trump was able to develop a lot of clout amongst these non-college educated white working class individuals who haven't really had a good paying job in decades at this point. Okay? That's what destroyed this country's manufacturing capabilities, because there was not necessarily capital flight, but I guess you could consider it capital flight. They moved their manufacturing to China. They moved their manufacturing overseas. Now, trade protectionism is a necessity to ensure that that does not happen. It should have happened back then. Of course, it never did. And multiple decades later, after you have designed this global web, of trade, you're turning around and going, yeah, we're gonna break it entirely. That is always going to be a difficult situation. That's always going to be an incredible, mountainous task to defeat. Especially when you're a right-wing guy, especially when you're seemingly on the side of capital. It just doesn't make any sense the way he's doing this. I don't know if he is capable of undermining China as like the industrial hub by making, by trying to bring back manufacturing in the United States of America. I like the idea of bringing back manufacturing into the United States of America. I literally use domestic labor union manufacturing with my fucking merchandise, okay? I am a socialist. I'm a leftist. I'm pro trade unionist. I'm anti-capitalist. Of course I like fucking American manufacturing. I want American manufacturing to grow. I want there to be competent, competitive, domestic manufacturing in this country with good paying labor union jobs with good benefits. That is the whole project, okay? Now, because of that, I'm not going to immediately say tariffs are bad, ironically enough, as I have said time and time again since Trump announced that he was going to do fucking, tariffs over and over again. The problem with Trump's tariffs is not that he is implementing tariffs across the board. The problem with Trump's tariffs is that he's doing it for seemingly no fucking real reason, and he's doing it with no competent manufacturing output at the domestic level. So for the UAW side, it makes sense. But if you look at anything else, or even if you look at certain car parts or certain goods that are necessary for cars to even be built, like all of a sudden you're beefing up the prices. You're immediately boosting the prices across the board because everything in this current global web of trade, everything, even without free trade agreements with like Canada or Mexico, still crosses many different borders before they come to the United States of America.
Now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country. Honda is building one of the biggest plants.
The trade story is certainly picking up speed here and pushing more countries to...
I think one of the biggest ironies here is that this is the one thing that will cause Americans to rise up and take up arms against the current administration, no matter who is running the show. Even Donald Trump, who has a cult, right? You cannot touch America's treats. Treats have to be affordable and accessible. That is the one thing that you cannot touch. And this actually touches the treats. J.D. Pondon says treatlerites will suffer. Permanent first world genocide, says J.D. Pondon. No more treats. The suburbs will cry tears of blood. That's what he's doing. The secondary benefit of the mass tariffs implemented, of course, is that he would be eviscerating his favorite sector. The number one industry for Trump supporters is, of course, what? Trump merchandise. This destroys that sector entirely. Okay, and I like that. I appreciate that. I'm sorry. Get mad at me. Say I'm being fucking petty, but I think
is back.
That's right, baby. So there it is. I mean, as I've told you, this is J.D. Pondon. This is permanent first world treatlerite genocide. Okay, it's happening. He's doing it. He's doing it. He's doing it. The mad lad. It's Liberation Day. I hope you feel liberated.
President Trump set to announce a sweeping new round of tariff sales taxes that will have a huge impact on consumers and the economy. Rebecca Jarvis is going to break that down after this report from Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, after weeks of uncertainty and anxiety, in just hours here, President Trump is finally set to unveil his most aggressive tariffs yet. He says they will restore fairness to the global trading system and ultimately grow the U.S. economy. But economists warn American consumers will pay the price. This morning, the country and the world bracing for impact as President Trump prepares to unleash reciprocal tariffs on America's trading partners, what he's calling Liberation Day.
What they do to us, we do to them.
But it remains unclear what exactly the president will announce today. The scope of these tariffs and which countries will be targeted, still unknown.
He's with his trade and tariff team right now, perfecting it to make sure this is a perfect.
This is one of my favorite parts of the Trump administration. Aren't you a treatlerite yourself, lol? Yeah, I am. I love treats. But also, if there was a world where, well, first of all, it won't impact me. It doesn't matter. Everybody likes to talk about how much money I spend, but like for how much money I make, the amount of money I spend is negligible. Okay. So it's not a real issue. I'm being very honest with you. Many people in my financial circumstance will lie to you and be like, "Oh, this is really hitting me hard." Rich people are lying to you when they say that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, as a treatlerite myself, ultimately, if there was a limitation on what kind of treats I could consume that still yielded tremendous bounty for the American working class, I would take that shit in a heartbeat. I don't give a fuck. I've said this before. I would literally dump the fucking Taycan in the goddamn ocean if it meant that we could have walkable cities in Los Angeles and public transit. I would never even look at it ever again. That's it's so stupid. My advocacy revolves around trying to raise taxes on people like myself. This is not like a gotcha at all. Having said all of this, hold on. My garage is called the Ocean. Yeah, I would literally ocean. I was pro trade protection policy BYD U9 speed. Got to try out, and now my treatlerite mind started foaming and shaking. Yeah, I know. Wait, what was I going to say? What was I talking about? I'm forgetting. Oh, one of my favorite parts about the Trump administration always is like they have the energy of me during finals as school, where it just everything feels haphazard and slapped together last second. It's like they've been talking about implementing these tariffs for months now. Donald Trump said he was going to do it the entire time for like a year before he even before the election, right? Before the actual election day, he was like, tariffs is my favorite word. And it's like, now the time has come. He set himself, he set this hard deadline on himself. And even then they're like, they're working round the clock. They're up late night trying to figure out these tariffs. It's like, bitch, what do you mean they're up late night? This guy's been saying he wanted to do this for a year and a half. Why are they talking about tariffs literally the day before he implements them? Are you guys crazy? What are you talking about? This isn't some bullshit class that you took in college to get an easy A to beef up your overall grade, okay? This is the fucking global economy. This is the entirety of the American economy. And these guys are like, yeah, we're working tirelessly around the clock. We're planning it. It's like, well, maybe you should have planned it before you came out with this idea. This doesn't make any sense. What the hell?
Perfect deal for the American people and the American worker.
The uncertainty is injecting fresh concern into an already jittery stock market, as economists warn American consumers.
More than Biden did in his whole term, though. That is hilarious. Okay, first of all, I love the cope from Republicans. I know this chatter is joking, but like, no, that's not the case. Okay? I'm sorry. If anything, the issue with the Democratic Party is that they don't do enough of this. There's a balance here, okay? Sometimes you do have to break things and move fast and then pick up the pieces afterwards, especially if your direction is appropriate, especially if your direction is pro labor unions, pro working class, right? The Democrats never do that. That is my problem with them. They never do that. They are genuinely terrified. They endlessly focus test every single minute detail until their plans are basically nothing. And they are so conciliatory. They come to the table they come to the bargaining table pre-bargained. And then they reduce the policy implementation after the fact too. It is one of the most annoying aspects of this. It's one of the most annoying parts of how the Democrats operate. It's one thing that I always say when I'm like, Democrats should do politics like the Republican Party and not the policies of the Republican Party. Okay? I wish they were just like moving fast. Can you imagine Build Back Better is like, oh, look alive, Jack. We're doing an engineering core. I don't care. Oh, you don't like it? Well, guess what? You'll like it when the potholes are fixed in your neighborhood. You know, that type of shit. That's the energy that I wish Democrats ever had. Of course, Brandon would never be able to do that because he's dead. He's a dead man. He was a cadaver. Okay?
Consumers will bear the brunt of this. Tariffs on imported products are taxes paid by American businesses. Those costs are then passed along to consumers in the form of higher prices on everything from groceries and electronics to cars and clothes. The president insists his tariffs will ultimately boost the economy and encourage manufacturing in the U.S., but it could take years to ramp up production on American soil. The message from the White House.
Yes, of course it will take years to ramp up production. And of course there will be growing pains. The problem is the guy that is implementing this is not pro-labor. And therefore, I don't even know what reason he's implementing this for to begin with. It just doesn't make any sense. I suspect he backtracks from the tariff stuff eventually. He's just going to backtrack. Answer my dono, Shoe Sniffer 42. Write it in the chat instead of donating it. This shit's so funny because like CEOs can take a tiny bit of stagnant millions and not raise our prices. Yeah, that's never going to happen. Let's be real.
Have faith.
You should trust what this president did for you in his first term. He effectively utilized tariffs while driving down inflation.
But experts have concluded the tariffs during Trump's first term drove prices up. The president sees these new tariffs as a means of economic redemption, a way to punish countries that he feels treat the U.S. unfairly.
Many countries have taken advantage of us.
He has acknowledged Americans could feel some
I've been avoiding the news. How do I do self-care to stay aware? Wait, what? Okay, dude, I'm not going to answer that question right now. Come on.
short-term economic pain. The big question, how long will it last? Consumers now rattled and racing to make big purchases like cars before the tariffs hit.
This weekend alone, I think we sold and delivered probably about 40 cars, which is 20-30% above.
Yeah, what's funny about this also is that it has led to a short-term boost. Now, obviously, car prices are immediately going to go up. Ironically enough, it's going to go up regardless because of the tariffs, even if their inventory is not diminishing. Like a big chunk of the inventory that they have so far pre-tariffs, they're going to burn out of. But in that process, these guys are going to take advantage of the commotion. They're going to take advantage of the chaos. They're going to pump those numbers to the best of their ability. That's the other side of this, because no one, and I mean no one, cares about their fellow neighbors, okay? They only care about this. Thank you, Perry Plays, for the 10 gifted subs. So it's already, it will have an inflationary effect even before the tariffs are implemented.
Of normal.
In Brooklyn, New York, Robert Samuel decided it wasn't worth the risk to wait.
Yeah, I was going to purchase a car later down the line, but now that it's been updated with these tariff prices affecting us, I decided to come in today and leave with one of them today.
And the president will finally unveil these tariffs here in a Rose Garden ceremony at 4 p.m. after the
But a lot of people buying new cars are rich bastards. Dude, what are you talking about? Like, think about the entire economy, dude. There's like 330 million people on this in this country. Not every single person that's buying a fucking Honda Civic is a rich bastard. Okay? Like, everyone needs a car, unfortunately. It's not. What are you talking about? Oh, Jesus.
Markets close. We are told they will go into effect immediately, George.
Okay, Marion, one other thing that's going into effect, these massive layoffs at the Department of Health and Human Services.
George, 10,000 layoffs are now underway at HHS. The move catching many off guard. We saw those long lines yesterday of federal workers outside buildings waiting to learn if they'd been fired. Some showing up only to discover their badges had been cut off. Now, among those fired,
Incredible.
the FDA's top tobacco regulator under.
Incredible work, sir. Thank you so much. Mass layoffs at the mass layoffs at federal agencies, mass price hikes. It's just like, it feels like you're just trying to break everything, and not even for some kind of decipherable good purpose where you're going to rebuild it in a way that benefits the needs of the 99%. You're just kind of breaking it. And it doesn't even feel like you're breaking it for capital owners either. It feels like you're breaking it for the sake of breaking it. That's what's so crazy.
Whose leadership teenage tobacco use dropped to its lowest point in a decade, also laid off researchers working on everything from drug use and mental health to reproduction and infertility. And
it's awesome because ideologically, Donald Trump's actions here are, if they weren't so insane, if they were directional, if they were directed like a specific sector with the intention of like boosting manufacturing in the United States of America, Republicans will still have a hard time defending it because Republicans are free tradists. They love free trade. They defend capital. Capital loves free trade. It is perhaps the greatest way that you can instantly reduce the only malleable aspect of your commodity production that is labor. That's the most malleable part of commodity production. Okay? Unless you find a new sector where there's just like a robust amount of the ingredients that you need to build things, right? Without that, unless like natural resources boost or something, it's pretty set. Like prices prices for just like simply the things that you need to the raw goods that you need to build shit is set already, okay? Whereas the labor part of this is the most malleable aspect of it. It's the one that you can dominate. It's the one that you can always lower, okay? With technological improvements, you can always reduce the number of people that you have to pay for benefits on. You reduce the potential cost down the line if your workers are getting sick or hurt, and then you have to do additional payouts, right? It is the greatest way to improve your profit margins. Now, this is precisely the reason why it was a massively beneficial move to be able to move manufacturing to a developing country, and to many developing countries, as a matter of fact. It was awesome for the capital owners. They did that. They were so stoked on it. Therefore, it's very difficult for the Republicans on Fox News to defend this move, to defend the tariffs, which, albeit are being done also in a haphazard way. But even if they were done in a directional way, with direct coordination with like labor unions, for example, they still would have a hard time defending it. This is ideologically the exact opposite of what these people believe. They're free trade guys, okay? And the Democratic Party is also permanently on the free trade side of things. It's crazy. It's like a total uniparty position, with the exception of Donald Trump, it seems.
And workplace safety. George.
Okay, Mary Bruce, thanks very much.
Turning now to some very rare good news for Democrats. A clear victory for their candidate, Susan Crawford, for a crucial seat on Wisconsin's Supreme Court.
Before we get to this Democrat-backed candidate wins Wisconsin stuff, I wanna complete my thoughts on this, right? I wanna complete my thoughts on this. Part of the reason why they're doing tariffs, another signaling of xenophobic nationalism, the underpinning of the entire administration. I mean, that part I kind of get. When you make that argument, I kind of understand it, because like it doesn't make sense otherwise for someone like Donald Trump specifically to be what Project 2025 admits tariffs are a failure, page 801 to 802. Yeah, it's one of the aspects of the Trump administration that like virtually everyone on the right despises. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but what does it matter what the uniparty stance is if we can't point out any real counter movement? What do you mean? He gets to walk a thin line of claiming we're bringing manufacturing jobs back, but then gets to please capital owners by making sure unions are gutted and will have no bargaining power for the few jobs that will now be automated. Yeah, I think if I were to dive into Trump's mind for a brief moment and try to understand where he's coming from, perhaps it is because they want American manufacturing to return because of national security concerns against China. Because if China were to ever, God forbid, shut off the trade faucet to the United States of America, we would collapse. We would collapse overnight. Maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe another part of the reason is because Trump does want to boost the American economy, or at least like jobs, boost American jobs. It's probably the first thing more so than the second thing. What is this? Read the bottom of As opposed to trade off with the kind of non-reciprocal tariffs that American manufacturers often face, the MFN tariff for automobiles applied to the U.S. only 2.5%. In contrast, EU charges 10%, Communist China 15%, Brazil 35%. Similarly, while the U.S. applies an MFN tariff rate of 6.2% on the rice it buys from Malaysia, Malaysia applies an ad valorem equivalent tariff of 40% on rice from the U.S. Meanwhile, European milk producers are shielded by 67% tariffs, while American milk producers benefit only from a 15% tariff on foreign imports. Wait, this seems like they are on board with the challenge one. Unfair and non-reciprocal trade is institutionalized in world trade rules. Communist China. No, this seems like they're on board with it. Non-reciprocal tariff rates under most favored nation rule. Anyway, let's go to 801. Page number 801. Right? That's the one you wanted me to go to. Let's see what they're saying on Project 2025 on this. Repeal the Jones Act, century-old Buy American maritime law that has decimated the U.S. shipbuilding industry. Work with Congress to restore the President's Trade Promotion Authority, which would expedite the negotiation of trade agreements with the United Kingdom, Switzerland, Taiwan, European Union, other allies. Restore the World Trade Organization's dispute resolution process to full strength. Create a successor to the World Trade Organization, assuming that it has been fatally wounded, that is open only to liberal democracies. This would prevent authoritarian countries like China from abusing the organization for their own ends. Oh my God. Adopt a multi-pronged. Yeah, this is all an effort to undermine pre-existing international institutions that America has already used as a fucking as a cumsock, only because like in that process China was able to expertly take advantage of the endless profit-seeking capital owners in the United States of America and develop a competent manufacturing and become the manufacturing hub of the planet. Adopt a multi-pronged China strategy to convince the Chinese government to reform its illiberal human rights and trade policies. Rejoin the TPP, whose 11 members are developing institutional trade norms in an important geopolitical region without U.S. input or involvement. Reorient the proposed Indo-Pacific economics framework for prosperity to focus only on trade issues, which it currently ignores in favor of progressive wishless policies. Strengthen diplomatic pressure in concert with allies against Beijing's abuses. Encourage cultural and intellectual engagement with the Chinese people, remembering that blue jeans and rock and roll helped win the Cold War. Dude, this is written in such a funny way. You are 75 years old if you think that the Chinese people don't have access to the exact same things that you're talking about right now. That's so stupid. The entire reason why a similar Cold War cannot happen with China as opposed to Russia is because of the intricate ties that we here in the West have with China and vice versa. They buy our shit. They manufacture our shit. They sell our shit. They sell it back to us in ways that the USSR did not do. This is so stupid. The idea that you think you can do cultural imperialism on China when China has eaten up all of the American culture. They love it. They love American culture. They consume it. They're not sheltered from it at all. They consume it. They like it. They enjoy it. But you know what else they enjoy? China's prosperity on the global stage. They definitely enjoy that. Tariff relief. When people try something repeatedly and it still doesn't work, they should stop doing it, especially when the consequences turn out to be just what the conservative economists have long predicted they would be. With tariffs, oops. Oh, fuck. I accidentally clicked on it and skipped all the way out here. God damn it. Okay. We're reading Project 2025, chat. Okay. Tariff relief. With tariffs, the proper reform is not only to get rid of the individual tariffs that have backfired, but also build institutional safeguards against future abuse. We are 5 years into the biggest experiment with tariffs since the Great Depression, and the results are in. The new tariffs raise consumer prices for ordinary Americans by about $1,000 $1,200 per household every year, and benefit only a small number of special interests. Steel and aluminum tariffs enacted on national security grounds angered allies. Beijing made not a single substantive reform in response to the 4 rounds of tariffs plus an attempted phase 1 agreement. Wait, they spent the past 30 pages glazing Donald Trump's initiatives only to dispute it immediately. This right here is just undermining the past 30 pages of being like, Mr. President is glorious. He is going to do fantastic things by destroying the World Trade Organization, only to rebuild it just for liberal democracies like ourselves. You know? Response to 4 rounds of tariffs was an attempted phase 1 agreement. The Biden admin has left the tariffs in its place and is expanding in the pursuit of progressive policy goals. The first order of business for the new admin that is focused on American workers and consumers is to repeal all tariffs enacted under Section 232. Wait, what? I'm so confused. So they're saying repeal the tariffs? The second order is to require Congress to pass legislation repealing sections 201 and 301. The U.S. Constitution places all taxing authority with Congress and none with the president. Congress used those provisions of law to delegate some of its taxing authority to the president because it was having trouble passing clean tariff legislation in the 60s and 70s. Congress was a problem of collective action in the 1960s. Repeal specific tariffs and put global ones. Ironically enough, specific tariffs are smarter than global tariffs. That's my point. Directional tariffs, in order to boost domestic manufacturing, is smart. It makes sense. It is a long-term good thing. Not to say that like the previous administrations were doing that, for the record. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think that they were doing that. But it's ironic that Trump is, or Project 2025 wants to repeal smarter tariffs, I guess, in comparison, to make it like universal. And I guess my point is, if you sanction everybody, you technically are sanctioning just yourself. If you tariff everybody, you technically are just tariffing yourself. You know? Do you see what I mean? America has caused a secondary market to organically develop as a direct consequence of SWIFT, and not only just SWIFT, but also these sanctions regime that they greatly beefed up from Barack Obama to Donald Trump 1 to Brandon and now Donald Trump 2. They've sanctioned the entire planet, basically. And now they're tariffing the rest. Sanctions for our enemies, the poorest countries in the global south, in order to keep them as poor as possible. And then tariffs for our allies. Okay, then you're just alone. That's it. That's the final process here. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult for these guys, these poor guys, to defend these decisions. Let's take a look at what Fox and Friends had to say about this, you know?
But Moody's comes out and they said that an escalation of the trade war could wipe out 5.5 million jobs and lift unemployment to 7%, and GDP could drop 1.7%. That's if people don't come off it, and Moody's is not for it. But the tariffs will apply, will bring a lot of money in on just the tariff goods. And let's see, the ultimate goal is to bring manufacturing back here. Right. Ro Khanna doesn't think it's going to...
Nothing wrong with tariffs. I'm going to live an exciting life as a smuggler. Now is the age of sail. That's right. The world has yielded tremendous bounty for me. I am a pirate.
Bring manufacturing.
Well, Brian, that is the dream. Keep in mind, this is a gigantic experiment like we've never seen before. You know, on paper, it looks great to the president and his team, who are talking about it would be great to bring jobs back to the United States. But keep in mind, people have got to come over here and build factories, and that takes years. And there's a lot of uncertainty on Wall Street and also in the business community about, okay, this new round of tariffs, how long is it going to last? Are they going to last 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? They've got to be able to plan. And that's why the stock market has been all over the place. That's right. And, you know, Jackie, I was...
Oh, man. It's just hard. You know, our brave, bold, beautiful president, who always is the best thinker, has the best interests of the wealthy in mind, I promise, and the working class in mind. He's doing his very best. But the problem is, you know, even when he's doing his very best, the market simply doesn't understand. You know, the market moves. The market thinks in decades. Donald Trump thinks in centuries, and that's the problem. And you know, growing pains. It's just growing pains.
Just thinking about that. The president's calling it Liberation Day, but maybe we should call it Libation Day because, you know, Wall Street's all over the place. They might start hitting the soft.
No, that's good. That's good. It's a good thing, right? It's good when market volatility famously is a good thing, right? That's what capital owners love, especially when it's so volatile that you can't even you can't even make like discernible good stock trading decisions.
At 4 o'clock when they finally unveiled this thing. I was
maybe even sooner.
Yeah, that's right. I was reading this morning that apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, some people in the business community and on Wall Street are still banking on the idea that the White House might actually pull back on the tariffs if something bad happens to the economy. And I know Goldman Sachs.
I love this, dude. Everyone is just like all of America's wealthiest capital owners are sitting around biting their nails at the whims of seemingly a madman. It's awesome. Oh, he's not serious, you guys. He was just memeing. He was just joking. I think, right? Right? You're joking, right? It's hard. It's hard for me not to look at this and laugh a little bit. I mean, it's sad because, as I've said time and time again, in the stock market, the gains are privatized and the losses are socialized. So when the stock market is up, you're not going to feel it. But when it's down, you certainly will feel it, right? And it is down, or it's been down for sure. So I have chatters talking about how like their 401ks are just like getting gutted in the process. My crypto bros cope by saying volatility is vitality. I am seeing a lot of crypto bros saying the exact opposite because the crypto markets are crashing too. Like universities and law firms, CEOs stay quiet amid fear of getting crossed with Trump. As trillions in new tariffs come out, some see little upside in objecting even privately. What good would it do if they said anything, said Mark Cuban. I've seen a lot of them saying it's a good thing because there's a fire sale. Yeah, they're stupid. I mean, they're in crypto anyway, so they're stupid regardless. The crypto bros cope is that this will crash the dollar and everyone will move to crypto is the dumbest argument that anyone could ever make. Because at the end of the day, one, you're living in America. If the dollar crashes, the entire global marketplace collapses. What are you talking about? And it will also crash crypto as it is doing currently. So what the fuck are you talking about? Everything is tied to the dollar. People are so dumb. What? This is a thing that I will never understand as well. Like Trump makes like these little schemes and grifts on the side for cryptocurrency millionaires and whatever. And that's one thing. But why in the ever-loving fuck would an American leadership destroy the global petrodollar, the global currency, which is perhaps the most significant factor in America's global dominance? Why would they do that? Baba biraz sesini kız. Çok bağırıyor. Baba. Peki. Bitcoin is up 80. Bitcoin is at 86K and is up today. Wait, are you anti-Bitcoin? Bitcoin is literally up today. Yes, I'm anti-cryptocurrency. I've always been anti-cryptocurrency. I will continue being anti-cryptocurrency. Welcome to the broadcast. I am anti-cryptocurrency. I hope that's not offensive to you.
Is predicting now with the tariffs, there's a 35% chance of a recession.
That has been put out there.
Oh my God. Why do I have so many? BTC still up 85K. What are you talking about? We've been hearing the haters on BTC for over a decade now, but what is the value at now? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh my God. Have fun, dude. Have fun, okay? You're going to the moon. You're going to the moon, dude.
I think also the impact of a recession on other countries would be more difficult. For instance, with Canada, it will be harder for them to pull out of a recession, which is a big concern for them.
BTC is literally down, was up 125K before Trump, so I don't know what these chatters are saying. No, that's just normal. That's normal, dude. You don't understand. That's normal. It's going to go to the moon again. It'll shoot back up. Yeah, the tulip prices have been increasing for a decade. No way they will go down. How the fuck are you a crypto leftist? I don't know. I don't know how that works, but honestly, more power to you guys, okay? More power to you guys. You understand? Have fun, you know? Make your money. Get your money up, not your funny up, crypto leftists, okay? It's great. Have fun. I don't care. I am long on Retardio and Dogshit 1, Dogshit 2, Dogshit 3. When it inevitably launches, I'm long on Hawk 2 a coin. Just say you hate gambling. What the fuck? I mean, yeah, I don't even like the stock market. Why the fuck would I like cryptocurrency? Give me some more copium from the Republicans trying to talk about these tariffs, please. I need to see more copium from the Republicans trying to defend the tariff decisions. Thomas Friedman glazing China. I just saw the future. It was not in America. I had a choice the other day in Shanghai. Which Tomorrowland to visit? Should I check out the fake American design Tomorrowland and Shanghai Disneyland, or should I visit the real Tomorrowland, the massive new research center, roughly the size of 225 football fields, built by Chinese technology giant Huawei? I went to Huawei's. Oh my God. Oh my God. They're doing it. They're fucking doing it.
I just saw the future. Decades told me in Beijing. There was a time when people came to America to see the future, he said. Now they come here. I'd never seen anything like this Huawei campus. Built in just over 3 years, it consists of 104 individually designed buildings, with manicured lawns, connected by a Disney-like monorail, housing labs for up to 35,000 scientists, engineers, and other workers.
Huh? Okay. Amazing. One crop away from bankruptcy. Republican Senator Tom Tillis warns Trump tariffs will do irreparable damage to the farmers. Oh,
says
no.
There may be a little bit of pain before we get things right. Need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy. They don't have time, so we've got to be crisp on this implementation. Otherwise, we could do damage that's irreparable to farmers. Anyone who says there may be a little bit of
Yeah. No, it's good though. It's good. It's good. Listen, the Great Depression too. Many people are saying Trump is going to bring about the Great Depression too. I'm one of those people, but also simultaneously I think it's great. After all, it's in the name. It's not shitty depression too. It's Great Depression. Why can't we be great? Make America great again. Make America Great Depression again. Magda. No bailouts no tariff exemptions for American farmers. They voted for the tariffs when they voted for Trump. Oh no. American farmers are pleading for exemptions from President Trump's tariffs. Republican members of Congress from farm states are working to deliver relief farmers want, but farmers do not deserve special treatment and should not get it, says David from. Oh, poverty builds character. I myself, of course, will not be experiencing the backlash from this, but for you, poverty will build character for you. Tariffs will indeed hurt farmers badly. Farms' costs will rise. Farm incomes will drop. Under Trump's tariffs, farmers will pay more for fertilizer. They will pay more for farm equipment. They will pay more for the fuel to ship their products to market. When foreign countries retaliate, raising their own tariff barriers, American farmers will lose export markets. Their domestic sales will come under pressure too. The 5D chess move was China throwing tariffs on Canada in retaliation, but also to bring to the table for oil. Let's see. Are you okay? Oh, I love this. I love Republicans when they try to like defend Donald Trump. This is one of my favorite songs that I love listening to. I don't listen to much music, but this right here is the tune, okay? This right here is the whistle tune that I tap into. This is my frequency. I want to hear what the Asmongoaldian side is saying about the brilliant, brave, bold tariff agenda. Like how are the prominent Republican commentators, how are the prominent conservative commentators defending these decisions? I want to know.
With your constituents feeling more pressure and more pain when it comes to the economy as these tariffs are put in place, and then the retaliatory tariffs are also put in place. Are you okay with pain being on their shoulders for a while as this all gets worked out?
Nobody.
It's just common sense. You develop an intricate network of global trade in an effort to benefit the American consumers, especially by way of capital owners charging super profits, making super profits for decades, only to undermine it with a indecipherable tariffs regime that will seemingly not even boost manufacturing, but is common sense. Everybody knows it's common sense. It's so common sense that capital owners don't understand it, and many parts of the left also don't understand it either, myself included. It's just common sense when only Donald Trump understands the decision making behind this initiative, which he will probably go back on, by the way. When the market starts screaming, when prices go up, and people rise up in arms because their Twinkies are unaffordable, you know, the common sense position will be to go back on these decisions.
Nobody wants pain for their constituents. I don't want pain for the people of Florida.
But Donald Trump said there will be some pain and disruptions.
Hold on. But you are making an assumption without knowing the details.
I'm not making the assumption. Donald Trump himself said there was pain and disruption that was going to happen.
You're making an assumption. You are making an assumption, an economic assumption right now. Let's be very clear. The real pain economically has been the massive inflation coming from bloated overspending here in Washington, D.C.
This is so funny. Yeah. Washington, D.C. doing trans Sesame Street in Iraq, which is not even a crumb in comparison to, like, you know, social safety net spending, obviously, which is an absolute necessity. That's really breaking the bank. Also, do not look at the Defense Department. Do not try to audit the Pentagon. Do not look at the Defense Department. It's the overspending by Washington that has done inflation. Yeah, we're bloated. We're bloated because we're doing too much gay stuff in Washington. That's where the inflation is coming from, and not corporate consolidation that my party, the Republicans, and also in many instances the Democrats too, have allowed, so that there's like 3 corporations that dominate every sector, and they can very quickly rise prices regardless of what the demand looks like and regardless of what the supply looks like. It's awesome. It's fantastic. What are you talking about?
That is the real pain that the American people have felt the last 4 years.
Are you okay?
Also, these initiatives will legitimately raise prices. They will raise prices.
All right, here we
this
go.
Makes
Liberation
no
Day.
sense.
President Trump is set to roll out a wave of tariffs to advance America First economic agenda. It's going to rebalance trade. And the White House says they're going to go into effect immediately.
Lucas Thomason joins us live from Washington. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, Lawrence, Ainsley, and friends. Today is what President Trump calls Liberation Day, when these new tariffs will be rolled out. Champions of free trade, going back to Adam Smith's invisible hand, don't believe they will work. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says they will.
They will be effective immediately. And the president has been teasing this for quite some time. They're not going to be wrong. It is going to work. And the president has a brilliant team of advisors who have been studying these issues for decades. And we are focused on restoring the golden age of America and making America a manufacturing superpower.
Now, while details are not immediately clear, this is what we know ahead of President Trump's address this afternoon. The reciprocal tariffs could be less than what other countries charge the U.S. Rates may vary depending on country. The new tariffs could also apply to all countries, and sector-specific products such as steel and aluminum imports are already subject to a 25% tariff, and the car and auto parts import tariff are expected to begin today. The money will begin coming in tomorrow. And Goldman Sachs has raised the odds of a recession in the U.S. to 35%. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro says the new tariffs will bring in $6 trillion over the next decade, which is being called the largest peacetime tax hike in modern history, which will be paid for by the American consumer. Navarro said the auto tariffs alone will bring in $100 billion per year. And President Trump has acknowledged prices could rise, but said people are going to start buying American-made cars, guys.
Hey, Lucas, could we have last-minute deals, too? We saw Vietnam and Israel change their trade structure. We accepted that. Could the president be working the phones today, getting calls from other countries?
With President Trump, of course, he's known as a deal maker, guys. You saw what Israel did. They zeroed out their tariffs in the United States.
Right.
So perhaps we could have some last-minute deals.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes is a post on X.
There you go, indeed. And Lucas, did you say that one of those big investment firms says there's a 35% chance of a recession now?
I did, Steve. Goldman Sachs, they raised it up to 35%. It was like 15, 20% earlier because of the tariffs. We'll have to watch the markets for the opening bell.
Lots to talk about. Lucas, thank you very much. He mentioned we got to watch the markets. Originally, this announcement was supposed to be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the Rose Garden. But then they moved it back smartly because whatever is announced is going to impact the market.
Smartly? Dog, if your announcement is supposed to impact the market in a negative fashion, that is an indefensible move that you are, of course, trying to defend. That's so funny. Dude, he's like, no, you don't understand. This is actually a brilliant move this is actually a brilliant move because the decision is dog shit. And and therefore it's good that they're doing it after the markets close. Okay, so what happens when the markets open tomorrow? Masterful gambit, sir. You will deliver a stay of execution for the markets for a total of what? Fucking 12 hours? Great. How do we think that pro-Trump gamers handle their consoles being more? Yeah. Nintendo Switch 2 costs $450. It costs $333 in Japan. For the Japanese-only console version, but for the multi-region, it's $467. Culture Crave misinformation? Wow, I'm surprised.
What Wall Street hopes is there is some clarity, because right now businesses, they can't plan because they don't know, is it going to be drips, drabs? They're going to announce something today, something else next week.
Yeah, I want to hear from the pro-Trump gamers when they have to pay like $100 for fucking Mario Kart. It's going to be awesome. That's what I want. That's what I want to know. Pro-Trump gamers, Are you enjoying the show? I hope you have your popcorn, because he's not making titties larger in video games. But he is making it more expensive for you to see even the gay video games that you don't want to play. He went too far. He came after gamers.
They need to know long-term whether or not they should invest money in new plants here in the United States. Because the worry is if they invest to build a factory here in the U.S., and then in a year or 2 or 3 or 4, free trade comes back, they get screwed by putting all that money back here.
All of this is because Trump wants free and fair trade. He doesn't want America to be taken advantage of, and we have under past administrations. He says not under my watch. You mentioned Vietnam. Vietnam has already cut duties on U.S. imports because of this. They've cut its tariffs, and LNG, they cut it down to 2% from 5%. Cars down to 32%. Originally was 45 to 64%. Ethanol, 5%. It was 10%. In India, they reduced tariffs on motorcycles and whiskeys. Mexico, they deployed those 10,000 troops to the border to help with the immigration problem. The EU is proposing.
I think one of the funniest parts about this is like, ironically, and this might come as a surprise to people, but like free trade doesn't necessarily mean it's free. Okay. And one formative principle in the United States of America has always been that we don't necessarily have to make products that people want to purchase. We can just use our domineering power around global trade to force countries to buy our shit. This is a part of the problem. And I've been saying this, even with car manufacturing. If you want other countries to buy your cars, okay, make cars that they want to buy. Now, a big part of that is, of course, pricing, for sure, which tariffs would be able to, I guess, deal with if these countries were to reduce their tariffs for purchasing, reduce the tariffs, and then it's like cheaper in comparison. It just will never be able to compete with BYD, though, obviously. But also, there is another major issue. If the most popular car being manufactured in the United States of America by American manufacturers is a Ford F-150, which requires a commercial driver's license in other countries because it is a ginormous truck and it simply can't operate on European roads, for example, why the fuck would they buy that? They can't. It just doesn't make any sense. They're like, no, you're going to fucking like you're going to have a Ford F-150 and you're going to like it. You're going to buy it. Buy our cars now.
Lowering tariffs on car imports from 10% closer to the 2.5% that Donald Trump wants. Canada unveiled a $1.3 billion security plan for the U.S. and pledged to have this fentanyl czar. So those are some examples. But as far as investments are concerned, Johnson & Johnson investing $55 billion. We heard from Apple, $500 billion. SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle, $100 billion. Hyundai, $20 billion in the U.S. Nissan, $661 million. Eli Lilly, $27 billion. So it's working. Those are investments. It might, in the short term, be a little painful for Americans, but overall, this is about being fair.
A lot of it has to do with this unplowed ground. We've never seen this before. These are 10 times as big as the tariffs the president had last time. They were so effective. Joe Biden left them all in place. Everyone said the sky was going to fall. It didn't. These are about the size of William McKinley's, where he raised taxes on imports 50% in the 1890s. And it is the template President Trump has went with. Steve, you mentioned about building factories here. And are we going to build a factory here and end up zeroing out the tariffs? I don't think it's ever not going to benefit under the Trump years any company from coming back to America, down to zero, or coming to America. Right. You know, that's one of the things they balanced out in the 80s. Everything was targeted when Donald Trump first came out and said Japan's our problem and cars, we're losing our leadership in cars. All of a sudden Japan goes, what if I build Toyotas by you? What if I brought Honda there? And then we began to rebalance, and throughout most of the South. You got the Hyundai away from the unions, the Honda and
Apple in
Toyota.
Texas.
One person that continues to be a great messenger, not just for the
Yeah, 1890, famously a really good time for the American economy. Please don't look at what happened after, okay? Famously, the period between 1890 and like 1920 is a time that Americans know as the glory days. Okay? One of the best times for America. Famously. A real ushering in a second golden age. Don't look at what happened after. Even before 1890, there were market crashes basically every decade because there wasn't any welfare or financial system to stabilize things and support Americans. Yeah, it's really cool that Trump is also doing that. He's looking at all of the gains that were made, all of the initiatives that were taken in an effort to stabilize the American economy and saying we should cut all of that and simultaneously bring it back to a stage where, you know, we have the golden age of the American economy. Deregulation. Mass corporate consolidation. Wait, Shamath? What the fuck is he saying? Had an eye-opening dinner last night with two CEOs working to build an American supply chain for battery, CAM, and rare earths. These are two important drivers of electrification, robotics, EVs, etc. The difficulties beating China won't come down to tariffs, but mercantilism. The Chinese have 1-2 national champions for critical parts of the global economy. Then they subsidize these NCs, national champions, as necessary, dump product to impact spot price markets, and shape profitability with loans and grants that collectively make these national champions impossible to beat. So what should America do? Hard question without a simple answer. But one thing is obvious. We are not nearly as organized as China is to even be able to point a few national champions in critical areas. One example, the Department of Energy and DOD have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to try to do rare earth extraction from coal tailings at 100 ppm. Commercial companies can barely make profit at 6K to 60K ppm. What's the point of this? The money spent on coal tailings could have instead helped build domestic manufacturing and supply chains years ago, but the large capital allocation and meeting of the minds to make these decisions isn't happening. We need better organization and top-down capital allocation if we are to play this game. A centralization of the economy, if you will. Interesting. Like, we need, I mean, he's literally saying we need central planning to be able to compete with China. The skill and prowess exists in the U.S. and its allies, but Chinese mercantilism is a fierce and dynamic force that needs to be met head on with equally smart tactics and capital allocation by America. Huh. Wow. How did this happen? Why are so many pro-capitalist monsters running around talking like China glazers, you know? Tankies. What is happening? Why are these guys talking like they're a bunch of tankers? What the hell is this? I thought China was collapsing tomorrow. I watched so many YouTube videos, guys. I watched so many YouTube videos that said China is collapsing yesterday. China is collapsing tomorrow. China has already collapsed. They're lying about their numbers. What the hell is going on? The issue is that Chinese companies don't have to consistently post 10 to 20% growth like American companies. They are happy with 2% growth, which means they undercut every U.S. company. The U.S. will never do this, though, because those companies and shareholders are too greedy. What is going on? Is it because the U.S. aid dried up? No, that's not the reason. It's because people are, look, you can only maintain a silly position for far too long. If it's hammering you in the head, if it's brutalizing you over and over again, you inevitably have to go, all right, we have to admit our mistakes here. Because you can manufacture consent as long as you want, but you know, when your manufacturing is dried up and the situation is unmanageable and people's wallets are being hit in the process, you can't really just say no. The shocks that you're experiencing are good, actually. And people will riot. So, you know, something to consider. Something to consider. Meanwhile, Osho Speed is in China farming. Millions and millions of likes. People are going, oh my God, China is amazing. Why did everybody lie? Why did everybody lie to me about China? Devastating time to be an anti-China guy. Real bad.
Republican Party, but for Donald Trump, knowing the Trump speak is Kellyanne Conway. I think this has become a patriotic message. You build here. This is for our workers here. It's a national security issue. We can't be getting our PPE. We saw what happened during the pandemic. We're getting all of this stuff from other countries. Kellyanne Conway explained what the president is trying to do.
President Trump is using tariffs to, one, raise revenues for this country, two, to recalibrate and make more reciprocal our trade imbalance with other countries. You listed all the ones which are egregious violations of any kind of common sense and fairness, Sean. And also, President Trump is trying to protect American sovereignty, American security, American manufacturing, American jobs, America herself. I think President Trump would tell a lot of these companies, if not countries, tariffs are not his choice, they're your choice. If you don't want these tariffs, then start building more factories here, expanding your facility capacity, investing more in American workers, American innovation.
Right, and that's what we've heard from the administration, and they're putting all their eggs in that basket.
Okay. Company builds an American manufacturing hub. Okay. Invests a lot of money. The goods that are necessary for industrial output are still coming from foreign nations. What do you do in that situation? It's still going to be more costly. This is the problem with the universal tariffs regime that Donald Trump is implementing. Okay? That's the issue. You say it sounds like extortion. Fine. Okay. Sure. I don't have an issue with extorting capital owners to force them to bring back manufacturing to the United States of America. I don't have an issue with that at all. It's a fantasy. It is hilarious that, like, it is hilarious to me that Donald Trump is doing some of the fantasies of the left as well here. Like, the notion that you can just like bully capital owners to bring back manufacturing to the United States of America. If he was successful in his implementation, that is literally what I would want. Okay. That is what I would want. Donald Trump undermining U.S. aid. Donald Trump shutting down Voice of America. Like, what are we doing? Also, Andrew Tate favorabilities are at net 29 negative is so funny. Why is Andrew Tate being polled here? The MAGA communists are in control. Andrew Tate more popular than Chuck Schumer on this list, by the way. Trump is now at a -7. Nobody likes any of the main politicians in the country. The sales department in my factory job bragged about how everyone wants American made, and we're American made, so the tariffs will help us. Meanwhile, we get our steel from China and have customers in Canada. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. You have designed global trade to be a certain way for decades and decades, and then you choose to undermine it for no real discernible reason. I know Trump is about to be live, chat. Don't worry. We're going to go there. We're going to go there soon. Okay?
If it works, it will be fantastic, but it is a gigantic experiment. It sounds like right now the conventional wisdom is, rather than the little deals, the little side deals with everybody.
I want to die.
Okay, you do 2% on us. It will probably be a 20% universal tariff, which is across the board. If they implement that, which would be immediate, according to the White House, it would bring the effective U.S. tariff rate to almost 33%, which is the highest since 1872, which, Brian, you were talking about McKinley with the very high rates back then. 33% is a big number. And I know there are a lot of people who are on fixed incomes who are watching. You know, they're watching their 401k account go down. Let's just hope today's announcement brings some finality and some clarity, because right now they don't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
I just the one thing about Trump I noticed is that when things are tense, he gets the calmest. So when they attack his family, it's a little different. But you'll see ice in the veins through. He really feels as though this has been his vision since the 1990s. This is the World War II structure of trade. He wants to balance it out. And when you take these titanic plates and move them, there's going to be rumbling. People are going to get dislodged. But hopefully, they're going to get adhesed, and the foundation will be real strong. Some said, wait for the tax cuts. Wait for them to pass the one big, beautiful bill, then do this.
God, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous that Donald Trump gets to do all of this, and he's doing it in the wrong direction anyway. I'm sorry. I just have to be so honest about this. Like, he gets to do everything. He gets to break everything. He gets to break everything for no real reason. And you know, he's the only guy who's allowed to do this stuff. It makes me so goddamn jealous, dude. Because, like, as someone whose politics are not represented in the mainstream, I imagine a world where, like, a anti-capitalist, like even a social democrat, FDR style New Deal Democrat, comes into office and is basically doing this some of the exact same things that Trump is doing, as a matter of fact, and like puts people like myself into positions of power. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me not to. It's hard for me not to feel a little jealous. Almost in the same way that I looked at like January 6th, where there's only mobilization on the right. You know? Like, Trump is able to move the country in a right-wing direction aggressively by force with seemingly the heavens mandate, even though everyone goes, what the fuck are you doing? He's able to bully capital owners. He's able to do whatever the fuck he wants. It's just, I don't know.
Buying ahead of that announcement from Trump.
I
and
wish
the market's
Democrats,
still looking for clarity.
Like
We know the stock.
Democrats motivated by a real leftist ideology, an anti-capitalist ideology, would be half as successful as Donald Trump in the future. It makes me so sad.
The day a negotiating tactic, and that he would not allow them to have a severe drag on the economy, that if he were to see that happening, he would start to pull back on those tariffs. Those are a lot of ifs out there right now, Kana. So what we're seeing is people are betting that clarity will bring stability to the market, but we're not sure because we still have those retaliatory tariffs. Remember, these countries are going to have to answer back to whatever Trump puts out there today. We don't know what that's going to mean for corporate profits, what that's going to mean for the health of industries here in the U.S.
Right, we're seeing some overseas markets. It looks like they're coming together. We've heard from Mexico's president saying she doesn't want to do a tit for tat. But you're right, we don't really know how these other countries are going to retaliate. As you're watching the video here again, we are awaiting the announcement from the president, and you can see everyone is gathered there in the Rose Garden. But Alexis, I think we just saw J.D. Vance. Oh, there he is. There's J.D. Vance shaking hands, glad handing some folks that are clearly there in support of the president. Alexis, can I ask you one other quick question here? There was some terminology that came across my desk today. Is that some investors consider what's happening right now in the market a bit of a clearing event. Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely, Kana. So what happens is stocks are down so much. I mean, just take a look at this. The S&P 500, tied to lots of people's retirement funds, down 8% from the record high we saw back in February. The NASDAQ, which is home to many big tech companies like Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, down 14% since the high we saw back in February. When you have stocks that have been so richly valued come down so fast, it's just too good of an opportunity for a lot of institutional investors and just regular investors to pass up. So we're sort of seeing this clearing in the market right now where they're sort of, deciphering who may be the winners, if at all, from these tariffs. For Wall Street, from where they stand, a more targeted approach from the president would be the way to go because the pain would presumably be less spread out. It wouldn't affect all parts of our economy. So a lot depends on what we're going to hear in the next few minutes. But at least for today, investors felt that safe to come back into the market at these levels ahead of that announcement.
Interesting. All right, Alexis, thank you. And Catherine, as we're watching all of this play out here, we know that the president was meeting with his advisors, his so-called tariff team, if you will. And because we're so sparse on details, there was some reporting that even his closest advisors didn't know the specifics of this. But Catherine, in this moment leading up, I mean, who really has the president's ear right now?
Well, it's a good question because, as you know, there's multiple different advisors who Trump has been consulting on the tariffs. And
sorry, because we're going to send it to David Muir and the Powerhouse political team. Powerhouse for special coverage here.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're coming on the air for what will likely be another defining moment in President Trump's second term. Just moments from now, the president is expected to unveil his sweeping tariff plan, which has been raising economic anxiety here in the U.S. and around the world. You can see the president right there emerging in the Rose Garden. In what's designed today to be a major event at the White House, the president is expected to unveil these new tariffs targeting many of America's trade partners. The president's cabinet and Republican leaders are attending the event right there in the Rose Garden. The White House has said the new tariffs will take effect immediately. The administration has given no real indication about the scope of the tariffs before this moment, percentages or the countries being targeted. Just this morning, a senior administration official telling ABC News, quote, "It's still all very fluid." It's believed to be an aggressive plan here, which will include tariffs on some of America's closest allies.
Thank you very much.
Let's listen to the president.
Thank you. Nice crowd. What a good-looking group of people. Well, we have some very, very good news today, and a lot of good things are happening for our country. Please sit down. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. Going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy. For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far. Both
I want one of those like Groyper core videos of Trump talking about how there's gonna be so much winning. You will say, "Please, sir, not enough winning." As like, and then like HVAC business owners like crying.
Leaders have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. We had an American dream that you don't hear so much about. You did 4 years ago.
You don't hear about it any longer.
And you are now, but
where
you
is
don't
it?
Too often, and for many years
Where
and decades
is the dream
even, you didn't
they
hear
say?
too much
Hold on,
about.
I gotta see what Asma's chat is
Our
doing
country
here.
and its
We gotta
taxpayers
see
have
it.
been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. It's not going to happen.
Base Trump. Pump Ethereum, please.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic
Do you want Trump to
executive order
liberate you? Yes, Daddy,
instituting
Daddy, no.
reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal. That means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. This is one of the most
basically
important
scavengers,
days,
not
in my
wrong?
opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly. With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before. Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country, and you see it happening already. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. And ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers. This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back. We're going to come back very strongly.
Oh, yeah, the golden
We're pleased
age
to be
is
joined
upon
on
us.
this momentous occasion by Vice President J.D. Vance. J.D., thank you. Thank you.
They believe it. They're saying, hell yeah.
No, that wasn't too hard to find. I was looking, you know, he likes to take a low-key attitude,
Supercharge.
so it'd usually be sitting right in
They-
front. He's
they think
gaining
it's
a
re-
lot
they
of
think it's
confidence,
happening.
Mike, isn't it? And nearly my entire cabinet is here, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson, who's done an amazing job. And with the great success we had last night in Florida, we have a majority of 7. And 7's like a lot when we had it at 1, right? You've done a fantastic job. And many of the members
The
of
amazing
the
is that
House
half
and
of his
Senate
chat
are
is
with
European,
us.
which makes it even funnier. I know. They get fucked the worst out of this as well.
Decades, the United States slashed
Like, European groypers loving Donald Trump's initiatives is so funny to me. It just, like, destroys their economy.
outrageous non-monetary barriers to decimate our industries, and in many cases, the non-monetary barriers were worse than the monetary ones. They manipulated their currencies, subsidized their exports, stole our intellectual
Where's
property,
Elon?
imposed
Where's Elon?
exorbitant VAT taxes to disadvantage our products, adopted unfair rules and technical standards, and created filthy pollution havens. They were absolutely filthy, but they always came to us and they said, we're violating, we should pay for it. It's all detailed in a very big report by the U.S. Trade Representative on foreign trade barriers, and I'll just hold it up for you. It's available, and you don't have to pay too much. As I understand it, you'll pay nothing. It's a lot of work for something, actually, because it's a special book. It's very, frankly, it's very upsetting when you read it, when you see what people have been doing to us for 30 years. This all happened with no response from the United States of America, none whatsoever. But those days are over. Let me offer just a few examples of the vicious attacks our workers have faced for so many years. The United States charges other countries only a 2.4 tariff on motorcycles. Meanwhile, Thailand and others are charging much higher prices, like 60%. India charges 70%. Vietnam charges 75%, and others are even higher than that. Likewise, until today, the United States has for decades charged a 2.5 tariff. Think of that, 2.5% on foreign-made automobiles. The European Union charges us more than 10% tariffs, and they have 20% VATs, much, much higher. India charges 70%, and perhaps worst of all are the non-monetary restrictions imposed by South Korea, Japan, and very many other nations. As a result of these colossal trade barriers, 81% of the cars in South Korea are made in South Korea. 94% of the cars in Japan are made in Japan. Toyota sells 1 million foreign-made automobiles into the United States, and General Motors sells almost none. Ford sells very little. None of our companies are allowed to go into other countries. And I say that, friend and foe. And in many cases, the friend is worse than the foe in terms of trade. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these
Every
other
word is
countries
a
at
lie.
all
Wait
for
a
this
minute.
calamity. I blame former
There's
presidents
anti-Trump
and past
people
leaders
in
who weren't doing their
Asmongold's
job.
audience.
They let it happen.
Why is he rambling about
And they let
VATs?
it
Does he
happen
even know
to
what a
an
VAT
extent
tax
that nobody
is?
can even believe.
Imagine
That's why,
supporting and
effective at
believing this
midnight,
idiot.
we will impose a 25%
What is happening?
tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
Our words in the chat don't understand how economics work. Omega law.
Thank you.
But tariffs and VAT
Brian,
are paid
I'd
by
like
the
to
end
have you come
consumer.
up here
What is
for a
happening?
second, okay? I just see him sitting. He's been a fan of ours, and he understands this business a lot better than the economists, a lot better than anybody. Brian, say a few words, please, would you? Thank you, Mr. Thank you. It's a great honor to have you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I grew up just north of Detroit, Michigan, in Macomb County, known as the home of the Reagan Democrats. My first vote for president was for Ronald Reagan. I thought that was going to be the best president I
You're
ever
a
saw in my
fucking moron.
lifetime until Donald J. Trump came
You're
along.
a fucking idiot. You can wear all the labor union shit all you want. You voted for Ronald Reagan, you dumb fuck.
Plant after plant after plant in Detroit and in the metro Detroit area close. There are now plants sitting idle. There are now plants that are underutilized. And Donald Trump's policies are going to bring product back into those underutilized plants.
These people are
There's
so
going to be new
stupid.
investment. There's going to be new plants built. And the UAW members, and I brought 20 of them with me. They're sitting right over here. We support Donald Trump's policies on tariffs 100%. So, Mr. President, we can't thank you enough. And in 6 months or a year, we're going to begin to see the benefits. I can't wait to see what's happening 3 or 4 years down the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
What a great guy. He got it right from the beginning. He got it before almost anybody else. This group over there, they got it too.
As far as tariffs and boosting American manufacturing goes, there is a validity for UAW to be in support of some of these tariffs. Okay? But saying like, "Oh, I love Ronald Reagan," like you're a fucking moron, okay? You're a moron.
Pretty good, I will tell you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're going to be
Isn't that
very
what Sean
happy.
Fain's position is? I don't think Sean Fain said he loves Ronald Reagan. I think you're talking about Sean O'Brien who said that, and he was wrong to say that. I don't think Sean Fain was like, "I love Ronald Reagan." Are you insane?
Day in, day out, you're seeing it. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. With today's actions, we're also standing up for our great farmers and ranchers.
UAW's position on the tariffs are that it will be beneficial for American manufacturing. Yes.
Canada, by the way, imposes a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products. They do the first can of milk. They do the first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%. So when they're figuring what's Canada charging, they say, oh, about 2%, 3%. But take a look at what happens down the road. When you look a little bit, it's not a pretty picture, and we don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country. And with countries like Canada, you know, we subsidize a lot of countries and keep them going and keep them in business. In the case of Mexico, it's $300 billion a year. In the case of Canada, it's close to $200 billion a year. And I say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? I mean, at what point do we say you got to work for yourselves, and you got to? This is why we have the big deficits. This is why we have that amount of debt that's been placed on our heads over the last number of years, and we're really not taking it anymore. Through non-tariff barriers, the European Union bans imports of most American poultry. You understand? They say, we want to send you our cars, we want to send you everything, but we're not going to take anything that you have. Australia bans, and they're wonderful people and wonderful everything, but they ban American beef, yet we imported $3 billion of Australian beef from them just last year alone. They won't take any of our beef. They don't want it because they don't want it to affect their farmers. And you know what? I don't blame them, but we're doing the same thing right now, starting about midnight tonight, I would say. And China charges American rice farmers an overquota, it's called, a tariff rate of 65%. South Korea charges 50%. Actually, they charge different from 50% to 513%. And Japan, our friend, charges us 700%. But that's because they don't want us selling rice and other things. Who can blame them, Madam Secretary? Agriculture, great job you did on eggs, by the way. The egg prices came down 50%. You got them down 50% once we got involved. They were going through the sky. The egg prices, they were going through the sky. And you did a fantastic job. Now we have lots of eggs, and they're much cheaper, down about 59% now, and they're going down further. We charge 2.8% for so many things that other countries are
10%
charging.
across the board tariff on all imports.
300%, then 400% for. If imposing tariffs and protective barriers made nations poor, then every country on earth would be racing to eliminate these policies, and China would be the first on line. They run a very strong country, but they're not first in line, and the American people are paying a very big price. From 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore. But we're not going to have it very much longer.
I don't think he meant
But
1789.
they collected
He
so
meant
much money.
1880.
They actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government.
Historically,
then
a period
in
of global
1929,
connectivity
it
and
all
trade,
came to a very abrupt end with the Great Depression, and it would have never happened if they had stayed with the tariff policy. It would have been a much different story. They tried to bring back tariffs to save our country, but it was gone. It was gone. It was too late. Nothing could have been done. It took years and years to get out of that depression, far longer than even FDR had that office right over there for a long period of time. The ramp system, that's rather intricate, was built because of him, and every time you walk up, you think of him, and he did a great job in many ways, but it lasted long beyond his terms, as you know. But it's not too late any longer, and we're going to start being smart, and we're going to start being very wealthy again. We're going to be wealthy as a country because they've taken so much of our wealth away from us. We're not going to let that happen. We truly can be very wealthy. We can be so much wealthier than any country. It's not even believable, but we're getting smart. Nearly a century later, in the face of unrelenting economic warfare, the United States can no longer continue with a policy of unilateral economic surrender. We cannot pay the deficits of Canada, Mexico, and so many other countries. We used to do it. We can't do it anymore. We take care of countries all over the world. We pay for their military. We pay for everything they have to pay. And then when you want to cut back a little bit, they get upset that you're not taking care of them any longer. But we have to take care of our people, and we're going to take care of our people first. And I'm sorry to say that. And today we're standing up for the American worker, and we are finally putting America first. In Sleepy Joe Biden's last year in office, the United States hemorrhaged 100,000 manufacturing jobs, and the number was going through the roof at levels never seen before. And our trade deficit reached a record $1.2 trillion, which is unheard of. Since the beginning of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made, it was a horror show. I was able to terminate it. They all said you'd never be able to get it out. We had to get approval from Congress to get it terminated. We had to live with that deal. It was the worst trade deal ever made by far. But since the very beginning of NAFTA, our country lost 90,000 factories. Think of what that is, 90,000.
Has he announced that income tax would be abolished?
Putting tax on it. You wouldn't have enough room.
He did say it was bad.
90,000. I said, is that possible? We had it checked 4 different times, and it was actually somewhat higher than that. And 5 million manufacturing jobs were lost while racking up trade deficits of $19 trillion. That was the worst trade deal ever made. As a result of these gigantic losses, foreign nations now own $26 trillion more of American assets than think of this, than the Americans own of their own foreign assets or other foreign assets. The United States can no longer produce enough antibiotics to treat our sick. We have a tremendous problem. We have to go to foreign countries to treat our sick. If anything ever happened from a war standpoint, we wouldn't be able to do it. We import virtually all of our computers, phones, televisions, and electronics. We used to dominate the field, and now we import it all from different countries. A single shipyard in China now produces more ships every year than all of the American shipyards combined. Think of that. And it was a business that we used to dominate. We used to dominate it totally. In short, chronic trade deficits are no longer merely an economic problem. They're a national emergency that threatens our security and our very way of life. It's a very great threat to our country. And for these reasons, starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating. And because we are being very kind, we're kind people, very kind. You're not so kind when you got ripped off with your salaries. My auto worker friends and my Teamster friends and all of the unions that typically voted Democrat, they're not voting Democrat anymore because worker, whether union or non-worker, they're for the Republicans now. That's what happened. But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that, yes, but it would have been tough for a lot of countries who didn't want to do that. I'd like to see the chart if you have it. Could you bring it up, Howard? This is our great Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thanks, Howard. So if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers.
He loves this.
67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset?
In smaller font,
They will
including
be because
currency
we never charge
manipulation.
anybody anything. But now we're going to
Including
charge.
currency manipulation and trade barriers. So funny.
Very tough, very, very tough trade.
You can just put any number you want on there once you add those.
European Union, very friendly.
Once
They
you
rip
add
us off.
that
So
as a
sad to
reasoning,
see. It's so
everything is a
pathetic.
tariff.
39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%. We're going to charge them 46% tariff. Taiwan, where they took all of our computer chips and semiconductors. We used to be the king, right? We were everything. We had all of it.
We had all
now
of
we
it.
have almost none of it, except the biggest company is coming in.
Taiwan.
We're going to end up with
Taiwan getting
almost
slapped with
40%. Lee
fat
Zeldin's
tariffs.
working to get their approvals. And it's an amazing company. Mr. Wei of one of the great companies of the world, actually. They're coming in from Taiwan, and they're going to build one of the biggest plants in the
Amazing.
world, maybe the biggest for that. But 64%, we're going to charge them 32%. Japan.
He's out of his mind.
Very, very tough. Great people.
Hey, yo!
And again, I don't blame the people for doing it. I think they're very smart in doing it. I blame the people that sat right in that Oval Office, right over there, right behind the Resolute desk or whichever desk they chose. Japan, 46%. They would
The
charge us
stock market is
46%.
immediately
And much
tanking?
higher for certain items like cars.
I mean, look,
little
he
items like
expertly
cars.
is doing this after
46%,
in after
we're
hours.
charging them 24%. India, very, very tough, very, very tough. The Prime Minister just left. And he's a great friend of mine, but I said, you're a friend of mine,
I can't
but
see this.
you're not treating us right. They charge us 52%. You have to understand, we charge them almost nothing for years and years and decades. And it was only 7 years ago when I came in, we started with China and charged them. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China in tariffs, and they understood, honestly. President Xi understood. He said, look, I understand, and the other countries, and they all understand. We're going to have to go through a little tough love, maybe, but they all understand. They're ripping us off, and they understood it. Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. He was a fantastic man. He
loves Shinzo.
Unfortunately, taken from us, assassination. But I went to him and I said, Shinzo,
if only Shinzo could see me now.
We have to do something. Trade is not fair. And he said, I know that. I know that. And he was a great gentleman. He was a fantastic man. But he understood immediately what I was talking about. I said, Shinzo, we have to do something. He said, I know that. And we worked out a deal, and it would have been a much better deal.
Third world again.
Frankly, there were many years left on the deal that was made previous to my getting there, but it was something.
Tariffs are a tax on our own citizens, by the way.
Switzerland,
Pepe
61% to 31%.
Indonesia,
Malaysia, Cambodia. Oh, look at Cambodia, 97%. We're going to bring it down to 49. They made a fortune with the United States of America. United Kingdom, 10%, and we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing. South Africa, 60%, 30%.
Guess when he brought out the chart?
Bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying
them.
What
do you mean?
Billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it. Brazil, 10%, 10%. Bangladesh is 74%. So you see what's going on. Pakistan, 58%. Sri Lanka, 88%. So what we're doing is we're taking not the full, we could take the full 88%. Thanks a lot, Art. He's doing a very good job. How's he doing, all right?
He's doing a great job.
I think you better take it with you. It's not going to last very long. He's going to put it, it's going to follow you down with the wind. I brought a hat just in case it got too windy, but here, would anybody like a hat? I'm not giving it to a cabinet. I'm giving it to the auto workers.
I caught it. I caught it, Mr. President. Oh.
Thank you, fellas. Get it. That's it. That's it.
Hell yeah.
Make the treat more than our cabinet.
Scream, Mr. President.
Our cabinet has plenty of hats. But you see the numbers. The numbers are so disproportionate. They're so unfair. At the same time, we will establish a minimum baseline tariff of 10%. You notice that on the chart?
Let me see where this was made.
That'll be on other countries to help rebuild our economy and to prevent cheating.
It doesn't say where this hat was made, Mr. President.
And we're going to be very severe on the people that at the gate that watch the tariffs and watch the product coming in, because there's been a lot of bad things happening at the gate.
It's got an American flag on it, though.
The money is so enormous that you're talking about. There's never been probably anything like it in terms of the enormity.
Doesn't have a tag on it. Don't know where it was made, but I think I can suspect.
They're looking at 10-year jail sentences if they do play. We're going to treat them so good, but if they cheat, the repercussions are going to be extremely strong. Foreign nations will finally be asked to pay for the privilege of access to our market, the biggest market in the world. We're right now the biggest market in the world. We had a great country 4 years ago in terms of the economics. We were doubling up on China. We were doing so well. Nobody was going to catch us, but so much of it slipped away over the last 4 years under Biden. I campaigned on this policy throughout last year, and today that promise was made, and it was also a promise, as you know, that was kept. Promises made, promises kept. To any company that objects to our common sense reciprocal tariffs, again, reciprocal, back and forth, back and forth. And I call this kind reciprocal. This is not full reciprocal. This is kind reciprocal. But what we do is we cut it in half. We charge them. My answer is very simple if they complain. If you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America. And we've seen companies coming in like we've never seen before. Likewise to all of the foreign presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, ambassadors, and everyone else who will soon be calling to ask for exemptions from these tariffs. I say, terminate your own tariffs, drop your barriers, don't manipulate your currencies. They manipulate their currencies like nobody can even believe, which is a bad, bad thing and very devastating to us, and start buying tens of billions of dollars of American goods. Tariffs give our country protection against those that would do us economic harm, and many people were looking to do us economic harm. Maybe not so obviously, but they were doing tremendous economic harm. But even more importantly, they will give us growth. These tariffs are going to give us growth like you haven't seen before, and it'll be something very special to watch. I am so looking forward, and Brian, it's going to happen even faster than you said. You know, you might say, but it's already started. It's already started. Work's already begun on plants all around the country, and you see that as before. These are big, rich companies. We have $61 billion started on a big plant going up. That's going to be announced over the next 2 days, and they already started work. Many of these biggest companies in the world,
2% in 45 seconds.
They've committed to build. We're going to build, sir. And they came here to see me, and they wanted to know if they could have a press conference. I do as many as I can. I'm pretty busy trying to stop Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East. We got to stop that. We got to stop the Houthis, which we're making tremendous. They like shooting ships down and out of the water, sinking ships. They get a kick out of it, but they're not getting such a kick out of it now, are they, Mr. Secretary? They're not getting such a kick out of that now. But here are just a short list of some of the companies that have already announced and committed to investment. And this is a company that built its factories and its plants in China. Apple is going to spend $500 billion. They never spent money like that here. They're going to build their plants here. SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, great companies, are investing $500 billion almost immediately. NVIDIA, a hot company, is investing hundreds of billions of dollars. They just announced. TSMC, the biggest, most important company in the world of chips from Taiwan, with no investment from us, is investing $200 billion. And they said the reason was, number one, the election of November 5th, and number two, the tariffs. They don't want to pay the tariffs, and the way they're not paying it is to build their plant here. So we're going to go from almost no percentage. We used to have 100% of the chip market. Now it's all in Taiwan. Almost all of it's in Taiwan, a couple of other countries, but mostly in Taiwan. And think of it, we had 100%. We lost it because of people in that office that didn't do their job. They allowed it to be stolen from us. Johnson & Johnson, great company, $55 billion. Eli Lilly, $27 billion. Meta is investing $500 billion. Wow. DeMac is investing $20 billion. CMA, CGM, $20 billion. And then you have Merck and Clarios, Stellantis, General Motors, GE Aerospace, Honda,
They're like,
Nissan, Hyundai are all putting in billions and billions of dollars, and they're committed 100%.
In between them talking about
and
me
we
being
have never
envious
had,
of higher view counts for Asmongold,
2.5
the
months.
dumbasses are talking about how it's going to lower the prices of fucking chips and GPUs.
With what everybody wanted to do. You know, I watched a gentleman today on television. He used to work with Lee Iacocca, a very respected automobile person.
Dumb.
And he said, you know, because they're asking people, they try and get as many negative people as they can, but they can't find them too much. It's pretty hard to find in terms of what we're doing, especially when they see all this investment.
What are you liberated?
They said, so
what
tell
are you
me,
being liberated from today? Your wallets.
Trump is doing
the
from
remaining money in your wallets. That's what you're being liberated from.
I can't believe it. Somebody is finally, he's an older guy, real pro, really top guy, with Lee Iacocca. He said, I never thought I'd see the day when this would happen, where somebody had the courage to go and do what has to be done. This is transforming our nation. Our entire nation is going to be transformed, not only with the cars, but on every single other item that's built. We're going to become an industrial powerhouse. And he said that so beautifully today. In fact, I'm going to find out, I'm going to get a tape. And Bruce, I'm going to get that tape, and I'm going to send it to you out in Long Island, and you're going to play it for the people. And all your union workers and your non-union workers out there, you got a pretty even split. But we have so far, it looks like we're going to have about $6 trillion of investments, and you wouldn't do that in years.
Jeff Stein
in
tagging
this
Get
country over the
Fiscal.
last
Don
number
Hughes
of
is
years.
so funny.
$6 trillion.
17%
and that's
on
going to be
Israel
much higher
is
by the end of the
hilarious.
year. And think of what $6 trillion is. You wouldn't have even a small percentage of that under this other system. We're going to be an
Dude,
entirely
if Wall
different
Street,
country. And
maybe BlackRock did actually hire Thomas Crooks, dude. Maybe Wall Street did hire Thomas Crooks. Thinking about the impact this is going to have on the American economy, perhaps they did know, and they were like, we have to cut it out immediately.
Executives and presidents of big public companies, and to watch the enthusiasm they have now that they didn't have. They gave up on our country. They went to foreign countries and they built. Companies are pouring into our country at levels never seen before, with jobs and money to follow, and it's really beautiful. In the coming days, there will be complaints from the globalists and the outsourcers and special interests and the fake news. Always, fake news will always complain. But never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong. They were wrong about NAFTA. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a disaster if I didn't terminate it. If I didn't terminate
After
that,
hours
United
trading.
Auto
The
Workers,
market
you would
is
have had
currently
no
being driven by
jobs in this country. You would have had
extreme
no
fear.
jobs. It was all going to other countries. In my first term, they said tariffs would crash the economy. Instead, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. And again, I have great respect for President Xi of China, great respect for China, but they were taking tremendous advantage of us, and I commend them for that. I say, hey, if you can get away with it, that's okay. But, you know, they understand exactly what's happening, and they probably, most of them are saying it's about time they did something, but, and they're going to fight, and they're going to fight fair. Everyone's going to fight. You know, it's like, I say to the leaders, look, you got to take care of your country, but we have to start taking care of our country now. We can't do what we've been doing for the last 50 years. From the day of my election, the stock market went up in my first term 88%, with NASDAQ going up 155%, more than any president has ever had in any term in office, by far. And I think we're going to blow that away. And maybe the numbers won't show, but I think they're going to show much better than even those numbers. But what you're going to see is you're going to see activity, that empty, dead sites, factories that are falling down. Those factories will be knocked down, and they're going to have brand new factories built in their place. They're not only talking about renovating, they're talking about brand new, the best anywhere in the world, the biggest anywhere in the world. I have a friend who builds car plants, and I said, I want to see the biggest and the best. He said, well, we have to go to Mexico. I said, no, I want to see it in the United States. He said, we're not building them in there. This is a year and a half ago during the campaign. He said, we're not building it. You'd have to go to Mexico. When I was starting to decide to run, and I went to #1 in the polls very rapidly, I want to say, like, let's say in the first hour. And then shortly thereafter, it looked like I was going to win, and the fake news was saying, oh, no, don't do this. What they don't know is if I didn't win, they would have really been in trouble, because nobody wants to read them anyway. But I tell you what, when it looked like I was going to win, I announced that I was going to be doing exactly what we're talking about today. Great consistency, actually, because I've been talking about it for 40 years.
What do you say?
Because I saw what was happening 40 years ago. If you look at my old speeches when I was young, very handsome, my old speeches, and that people would say, I'd be on a television show, I'd be talking about how we were being ripped off by these countries. I mean, nothing changes very much. The only thing that changed were the countries, but nothing really changes. But it's why it's such an honor. It's such an honor to be finally able to do this. If you look at China, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in my term, hundreds of billions. They never paid 10 cents to any other president, and yet they paid hundreds of billions, so much so that Biden couldn't do anything. They wanted to try and terminate it, because he had a very special relationship with China.
I'm in private equity. We just passed correction territory and are now strongly in recession territory in the market.
But the numbers were so big.
What do you mean, dude? What recession? He's going to build He's building factories tomorrow. It takes only a couple weeks, dude. And then to hire all of the labor after also gutting half of the labor force in the country with these insane decisions of, instead of documenting them, enforcing this rigid immigration agenda. I'm sure things will be fine.
Very bad election. A lot of bad things happen. So
it takes like what, a couple days to build a factory and then hire and train a competent labor force? What do you mean? It's fine.
Monumental win.
It's fine.
It was such an honor to see so many of you, like Brian and your friends.
Also to build the factory, you do need a workforce to begin with. So it's good. It's good that we have that workforce.
Because this will be an entirely different country in a short period of time. It'll be something the whole world will be talking about it. The critics made the very tired predictions earlier this year, but in February, core inflation dropped to the lowest rate in 4 years. And the price of eggs, as you know, just in a month and a half, we were there for 4 weeks. And the first week, I got blamed for eggs. I said, I just got here. They said eggs have gone up at like 250% and you can't get eggs. And they were going crazy. And I said, I just got here. And then we got to work on eggs. And we got to work on everything. And our great Secretary of Agriculture, you did a fantastic job. Brooke Rollins, she did a fantastic job. And as I said before, the price of eggs dropped now 59%, and they're going down more, and the availability is fantastic. They were saying that for Easter, please don't use eggs. Could you use plastic eggs? I said, we don't want to do that. We want to, and you really came through. It's an amazing job. Thank you very much, Brooke. You did great. But likewise, an old-fashioned term that we use, groceries. I used it in the campaign. It's such an old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term, groceries. It sort of says a bag with different things in it. Groceries went through the roof, and I campaigned on that. I talked about the word groceries for a lot, and energy costs now are down. Groceries are down. Gasoline is way under $3, and people are beginning to be able to buy things and live again. We brought prices way down. We created 10,000 already in a few weeks, new manufacturing jobs. And it was that took place in 1 month, numbers that they haven't seen in a long time. We had virtually no inflation under my term. We had virtually no inflation for 4 years. But after transitioning over to Sleepy Joe, it went from almost non-existent to the highest in the history of our country. They're the highest inflation in the history of our country, brought up by energy and bad spending and bad policy, and a lot of bad things happened. How about allowing millions and millions and millions of people to pour into our country with open borders?
We're putting a tariff on cum.
Where the
you will never be able to jerk off ever again.
And I see
no more coming.
You have done. Stand up, please, Christy.
Last term I had a pandemic. Now you're gonna have a pandemic.
These people are doing a great job, but gotten them out in records. We have problems with judges that don't want them to go out. They want Tren de Aragua, and they want MS-13, the most vicious gangs ever. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Absolute killer gangs. They kill people. They don't even think about it. And we put them out, and we have judges now, radical left judges that want to.
You're going to say, please, sir,
I
want to come.
They want them to even be brought back.
I'm going to tell you, no more coming. You will never come again.
And please thank everybody. Homeland Security, thank everybody. Appreciate it. And we now have a border that's the best border that we've ever had, even better than it was my first term. My first term we did good, but this one we really specialized in. We've done really well. And we had records then. We had the best, safest border. 4 years ago, we had the best border there ever was. And now we have, you've actually matched it and done even better. And we're going to get it down the right way. And we want people, by the way, to come into our country, but we want to come in through a legal process. We want them to come in legally. We need more people. We need people to run these plants and to help the auto workers and the Teamsters and the non-union people and everybody else. But we need people and the farmers. And we're going to let people come in, but they want to come in. We want them to come in legally. They have to have the capability of loving our country, not people that hate our country. We don't want them in our country. And now we're going to pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that's where we're relying on Mike and John Thune.
Uh-oh.
And we will not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid benefits, and the Democrats will, because if they got in, the entire economy would collapse. This country is heading for a collapse.
Amazing.
Under
So
the people
mass
that you saw.
So
They
complete
were
fucking
horrible.
tax cuts.
I think one of the reasons
and then a
people
mass
like the
sales
job. I have my
tax.
highest
The dream.
approval ratings because
The
I
dream
think
of the
they're
Republican
comparing me to
project finally
the worst
realized.
administration in the history of our country. So I appreciate that at least. But Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader, appreciate it, Mike. John Thune have been fantastic.
No
by the
more
way.
progressive taxation. I hate
But they've been working
progress. I hate
tirelessly
progressive
on
taxes.
taking the next step to pass the
Only
plan
regressive,
for our
folks.
one big beautiful bill. I'd like to name it that if you can. One big beautiful. I made that statement
must
about
make
6
the
months ago, and
working
everybody
poor
calls it one big
scream.
beautiful bill. And it will be that. It'll have everything, the big tax cuts and every incentive there is, and it'll be fantastic. And by the way, for the cars, we're asking for an interest deduction on a loan. So if you build the car, only in America we do it, Brian. If the car's not built in America, you don't get the interest rate deduction. But if you build the car in America, if you buy a car, if it's built in America, then you get an interest rate deduction, tax deduction, and that's a big thing. That's going to be a big thing. I think that's going to pay for itself very quickly, that deduction. Never happened. We've never had anything like that before. Somebody said, where do you get the idea? Because it's so basic. You would think that would have happened a long time ago. It never did, and I'm very happy it didn't, because now I can say that was my idea. But we're going to get us closer to the debt extension. We have to get the debt extension passed, and I know you're going to be able to do that, Mike, and it's very important that you do that. And all of the other things that the Senate budget plan gives us, along with working, because I know they're working together, John and Mike, and the two bills are going very well together. We need to get our shared priorities done, including certain permanent tax cuts. We want the tax cuts to be permanent, spending cuts, energy and historic investments in defense, border, and so much more. We're covering everything. These will be phenomenal. There'll be no bill like this going to straighten. One bill is going to straighten out our country for many, many years to come. And we said, let's just do it and let's get it done. And some guys will love it and some guys will like it a little bit less because they're not getting what they were exactly looking for, but they're getting a lot. They'll never, if we get this done, it'll be the most incredible bill ever passed in the history of our Congress and Senate and congressmen, the senators and the congressmen, many of whom are here today, will be very proud of themselves. I really believe that. It's going to set us on a whole new prosperous path. We're going to cut spending and right-size the budget back to where it should be. We're going to do that very strongly. Thank you, Rick. Thank you. John, thank you. Oh, look at all of our senators over there. Oh, boy, that's a nice group of people. But I won't like them so much if they don't get this bill done. That's a great group. And Congressman, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Tremendous people. The Senate plan has my complete and total support, and the House plan likewise is very similar. They're moving along pretty much at the same clip, and as soon as you're ready, you'll show it to me, and I'm sure it'll have my support, Mike. Every Republican congressman and senator must unify. We have to unify. We can't be separated. We have to get it done. We have to get absolutely everything we can, and we have to take care of the American people. That's the only thing that matters. We have to take care of the American people first. We need to pass this bill immediately, get it done, including debt extension. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. The pharmaceutical companies are going to become roaring back. They're coming roaring back. They're all coming back to our country because if they don't, they got a big tax to pay. And if they do, I'll be very happy, and you're going to be very happy, and you're going to be very safe. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart, American steel, and we're going to build it with American pride like we used to. We're approaching our 100th day as president and have been given credit by a lot of people, actually, even some of the fake news. Can you believe it? which in this case,
Oh
hopefully
yeah, they'll
isn't
definitely be
fake,
giving you credit for
having
this.
done more in that time than
They'll
any other
definitely be crediting you for what's going on
in the
now.
history of our
Trust
country
me.
in the first 100 days. I think we've had an amazing in terms of what we've done, what we've gotten accomplished. I'd like to see if we can get that war ended and another war from not starting in the Middle East. We have to get Russia. They're losing 2,000 on average, 2,500 people today, young people, soldiers, Russian. Think of that, 2,500 through some days, but on average, probably over about a 1 week period, it's 2,712. They say they're losing those soldiers. They're dying. They're being decimated, and they're not from our country, but they're from other countries.
Yeah,
but
I'm
they're
noticing a lack of
human
Elon
beings. They're
being
from Russia,
mentioned in
they're
this
from
speech.
Ukraine in this period.
You guys notice
most
that
of
too?
them. And we're going to get it
I wonder what
stopped.
happened.
It's a senseless war that would have never happened if I was president, and it shouldn't be allowed to go on. And I think we're being given good cooperation by Russia and by Ukraine, but we have to get it stopped. It's humanity. It's humanity. It's a terrible thing. This will be a very big moment. I think you're going to remember today. It's going to be a free nation that we're dealing with. We're going to have a very free and beautiful nation. It's going to be Liberation Day in America, and it's going to be a day that hopefully you're going to look back in years to come and you're going to say, you know, he was right. This has turned out to be one of the most important days in the history of our country. God bless you and God bless America. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
So there you have it, President Trump in the Rose Garden at the White House on what he has dubbed Liberation Day when it comes to the economy. He has announced reciprocal tariffs against countries all over the world. He has said basically what we are going to do is reciprocal tariffs charge countries what they charge us to sell our products in their countries. And instead of charging them exactly what they charge us, in his words, and we have to take his numbers for what they are at this moment, that the U.S. will charge half as much as what other countries are doing.
Why would you take his
litany of
word?
examples. He said China, and this is the number calculated by the White House, they charge 67% in tariffs on American goods and other charges. So the U.S. will now charge 34%. The EU, our allies, he says they rip us off. He says they charge about 39% in tariffs and other charges. We will charge them now about half that, 20%. It went down the list of a number of countries. He said Vietnam, our allies, he said, I like them, but they charge us 90%. We'll charge them about half that at about 40%.
Look, I will say this much, okay? The markets might be screaming at this moment, but ultimately, that's not the most reliable metric for seeing the damage that this will do. So they'll fucking rebound tomorrow. You know what I mean? But what's important to understand here is what will most likely happen to U.S. trade, and specifically the cost of goods. The cost of goods is going to go up a lot. A better indication of how you feel, a better indication of how you experience the economy will be inflation.
From here moving forward.
Well, the negotiation that could happen going forward is certainly on the table here. And he even sort of opened the door to that as he was talking to the audience there, saying we can have conversations with these foreign countries. But the big headline here is that this is based on the White House's math. But these are very high numbers. A 34% tariff on China, 20% tariff on the EU, 26% on India, and that 10% minimum. That's not insignificant.
Let's go to Rachel Scott right there in the Rose Garden. Rachel, the temperature there in the garden, she's standing by for us momentarily. Mary Bruce is on the other side of the White House. Mary, as Rebecca says, these are historic tariffs not seen at this level at quick math here since the early 1900s. This would be an extraordinary shift, and we did not hear a lot from the president about any immediate impact on the American consumer, the customer who goes to the grocery store, the mall, the auto lot to buy a car. We didn't hear a lot of detail about what the initial impact could be here.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Look, the president is adamant that these tariffs are going to boost the U.S. economy, that it's going to spur a renaissance in American manufacturing. But economists have warned that that takes time, that it could be months or even years to boost production on American soil. And in the meantime, they say American consumers are going to bear the brunt of this, that costs are going to skyrocket. The president didn't touch on that in these lengthy remarks. Now, in the past, he has said that Americans should be braced for some short-term pain. The question is, how long is that pain going to last? And when pressed on that, in recent days, the White House has said simply that Americans need to trust the president and have faith. David.
Mary Bruce, right there at the White House, at the Rose Garden. Rachel Scott also standing by. Rachel, I understand you can hear me now. There you are, with the crowd there behind you. They liked what they were hearing. And of course, the question is how our allies will respond to this around the world, our friends around the world, with these extraordinarily high tariffs that the president says are long overdue. And again, what the initial impact, and when I say initial, this could be in many weeks, several months, if you will, because also economists say if you want to bring products back to America, it's going to take quite some time before that can get up and running.
Doug, how long do you think it would take to build a factory?
And even those who are here, steel workers, auto workers, they acknowledge that while they are supportive of the president's plan, that this is not going to be like a light switch on and off, that this could take time, months and years.
And even once you build the factory and you hire the workers and you train the workers, it's going to take a long time for them to even build the factory, to even get the workers and train the workers to build the factory to begin with. But even after that, there's a runway here that is tremendously long, much longer than the couple months that they're suggesting. Okay? But also, on top of that, the fucking goods that they need, the materials that they need to do manufacturing that are coming from outside of the United States, the cost of that is going up too. It's so stupid.
BCNews.com. For many of you, your local news is standing by right here in the East. And of course, I'll be back here with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm David Muir in New York. Good day.
Why the long face, David? Get it? Because he has a long face? Yeah. American Glorious Liberation Day. Liberating us from living in a treat the right nation where you at least could have goods.
Most of the party
affordability
is diving
for goods.
Headlong into this, squarely behind Donald Trump. It does show his clout in the Republican Party to change free traders into pro-tariff Republican senators.
It has been Democrats who
I think it's a warning sign because we have 18 special elections in this year so far, and 17 out of the 18 Democrats have won because they do not believe, the American people do not believe that he is doing enough to lower costs. So if costs go up, it's a big red flag for Republicans because I'm not sure they can come back from it.
And it sounds like they are, in fact, going to go up in the short term. We'll see about the long term. Jake Tapper standing by for the lead. Starts right now.
This is CNN breaking
tariffs
news.
on Russia. What kind of trade do we have
Welcome
with
to
Russia
the lead,
at
and
this
I am
point?
Jake Tapper. Our breaking news just moments ago. President Trump officially announcing widespread, what he calls reciprocal tariffs, at least 10% on practically all goods coming into the United States, plus higher rates on dozens of countries that have the highest trade deficits with the United States.
But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that, yes, but it would have been tough for a lot of countries who didn't want to do that.
I do like the sneaky move that they did where they added that in the fine print. They added this tiny thing where they're like, well, they're doing currency manipulation and other restrictions in trade, like making it seem as though there's, when you add that in the fine print, obviously it could be anything that they're talking about to make this calculation.
The world
it's not
economy
fucking
could end
tariffs.
up impacting every American in the short term and the long term, raising prices in the short term at a time when budgets are already stretched thin from years of inflation. President Trump says that the tariffs in the long run will create more jobs in the United States and revive certain manufacturing sectors and even entire regions by forcing companies to relocate their manufacturing to the United States, in some cases back to the United States. It is a gamble and it is risky. Some Republican lawmakers are not sold.
In the long run, we're all dead. Short run matters too.
Bro. I'm sorry, but the fucking liberal media is so cucked by Donald Trump. If Joe Brandon did something like this, they would be calling to assassinate him. Okay, but when it's Trump doing it, they're like, "Well, it's a risky gamble."
They're both
I fucking hate the media.
Let's go straight to the White House
so much.
Our own Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, walk us through
Once
the
again,
details.
I'm jealous.
Of the
Once
new
again, I'm
tariffs
jealous. I'm jealous
that President
of
Trump
Trump's
just
riz. I'm jealous that he's able to fucking do this.
They just got it from President Trump as he made this announcement.
The market reaction after hours, I've never seen anything like this. This is worse than the worst case scenario in terms of what the market expected. CNBC reporting that the 10% baseline will go into effect on April 5th. The reciprocal tariffs will go into effect on April 9th. Canada and Mexico tariff stays at 25%. The White House is not looking for deals on this.
2 or 3 times higher than that as part of those reciprocal tariffs for what the White House and the president have determined are unfair trading practices, they say, against some of these closest U.S. allies that now will be paying much higher than that baseline rate. And just looking at this right off the bat, Jake, you see European Union, it is going to be a 20% reciprocal tariff. Taiwan, 32%. Vietnam, 46% reciprocal tariff. Japan is coming in at 24%. And India at 26%. Just to give you a small preview, Jake, into these tariffs that the White House is now going to be implementing. We've heard from senior officials about varying dates of when those tariffs will go into place. The president said immediately just now, in addition to that 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars. What you are seeing here are the most expansive tariffs that we have seen from President Trump, including from his first term. And as he noted here in the Rose Garden, this is something he's been talking about for decades and certainly did on the campaign trail this time around. But of course, the question is how other nations will respond to this and how the stock market will respond to this. The White House seemed to suggest earlier in a briefing with reporters that they have very little appetite for any kind of haggling with countries that are trying to reduce their tariffs in the lead up to this to try to get this to be lower. And also they issued a warning, Jake, to countries that have promised they will retaliate in response to these new tariffs from President Trump.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much. Look out for Caitlin in just a few hours on The Source. That's weeknights at 9 Eastern, only here on CNN. CNN's Daniel Dale, our fact checker, was closely listening to the president's remark to check out and suss out the facts there. Daniel, what President Trump had to say about Canadian dairy tariffs, is that accurate?
It was not even close to accurate, Jake. So President Trump said Canada treats the first little carton of milk that the U.S. exports as a low tariff product, but then after that, Canada applies massive tariffs in excess of 200%. It is not just the first little carton of milk that has low tariffs. In fact, under the USMCA deal that Trump himself negotiated, tens of thousands of metric tons per year of U.S. milk are treated as tariff-free by Canada. That is guaranteed tariff-free market access by Canada. And here's the key thing, Jake. The U.S. is not exporting even close to that tariff-free quota maximum, so none of those hefty Canadian tariffs above the quota level are actually being applied. And that was just one of the false claims he made, Jake. He also offered what I think is some pretty brazen alternative history, saying that the U.S. was at proportionally its wealthiest from 1789 to 1913. The U.S. is way wealthier today by any reasonable measure, including per capita income, living standards. And then he said that the U.S. would not have had the Great Depression had the U.S. stayed with tariffs. Well, there was a pretty infamous tariff in 1930, the Smoot-Hawley tariff, that is widely seen to have contributed to worsening that Great Depression. He also repeated his claim that the U.S. took in hundreds of billions of dollars that China paid because of tariffs he imposed in his first term. It is U.S. importers who made those tariff payments. Study after study has found that U.S. consumers and businesses ate the overwhelming majority of the costs of those tariffs. And so it is just not true that China was paying that money. He also falsely said that the U.S. had the highest inflation in its history under President Biden. Yes, of course, it was high. It was troubling, not even close to a record. And he said that gasoline is, quote, way under $3 now. It is true in some states, but the national average today, according to AAA, is about $3.24 per gallon, Jake.
Dude, if your logs have nothing in them, I'm going to
just joking. That was a lot. Daniel Dale, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Let's bring in CNN's Phil Mattingly and Vanessa Yurkevich
right.
to talk about the economies
within Trump's first
and the economic impacts of this all. Phil, so let's start with you.
Rebuilding American manufacturing is not possible within the 4-year time frame that Trump will be president. But Trump won't be president for 4 years. He'll continue being president.
Impact the average American.
It's a middle ground of the maximal approach that had been laid out, and I think options that had been presented to President Trump. What does that actually mean? That means this is more significant, more consequential, more grand on a scale when it comes to tariffs than anything we have seen in roughly 70 to 80 years. It is a complete reorientation of the global trading system as we've known it for the better part of the post-World War II era. The reciprocal tariffs did not go in full. The president saying he cut them in half, therefore it's not necessarily tariff for tariff.
Right, he was proposing a much bigger deal, even though this is a big deal.
Why do I seem so chill in the face of all this?
They are adding in non-tariff
barriers. What can I do?
What they believe are restrictions that other countries
What can I do, or what can I say?
The scale of them, country by country, for the 60-ish countries that they are actually
I've given up. You know what I mean? What do you want me to do? I have no.
At the campaign, he talked about having.
I have nothing to say or do in this process.
And then he talked about reciprocal tariffs. It was never
the
really
Trump glazers are going, yeah, this is base.
That's exactly what he did today. I think people need to understand. And I'm actually, if you look at the markets right now in futures, I don't necessarily know that everybody's grasping, one, the scale of this,
right,
and two, just how serious his advisors.
I also do think that crisis like this presents an opportunity. So I don't know. Maybe this is the accelerant that destroys capitalism. This is the accelerant that inevitably brings about the contradictions to the forefront, making Americans realize that the volatility of their material circumstances are far too much to bear, and therefore they don't magically become revolutionary figures or whatever. That's not my assumption, but they realize that this harm is being caused by right-wing reactionary charlatans.
On all $3.3 trillion worth of goods coming into this country now, at least 10%. But as the president mentioned, there are higher tariffs on countries that he says are bad actors. Ultimately, though, he says he cut those tariffs in half, sort of to play more fair, to give these countries a break. But let's just take China, for example. Now, a 34% tariff on China. We get a lot of electronics from China. Vietnam, a 46% tariff on Vietnam now. We got a lot of shoes, appliances from there. Colombia, a 10% tariff. We get coffee from there. Bananas. We get bananas from Ecuador, Guatemala, Costa Rica. Now at least a 10% tariff there. And ultimately, we have these auto tariffs also coming tomorrow, a 25% tax on all foreign imports of cars. On a country like South Korea, for example, they are the country that has Hyundai, right? So they are going to experience a 25% tariff on autos, and now under this new reciprocal tariff plan, an additional 25% on all exports coming out of South Korea. So for any product that Americans import and buy from abroad, at least a 10% tariff. If you do not see a Made in America sticker or tag, you're going to be paying something. And for consumers, this is really important because it's going to hit everything from food to cars to appliances to pharmaceuticals. It's just so wide sweeping. As Phil mentioned, it could have been worse based on what we were hearing. But ultimately, if you think about anything that you consume and buy from abroad, you're likely going to see some sort of price increase in the near future.
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich and Phil Mattingly, thanks so much. Let's bring in former Biden senior economics aide, Gene Sperling. He left the administration to work with the Kamala Harris presidential campaign. Gene, are there any of the tariffs, any of the moves that President Trump announced today that you think could benefit the United States?
I think that in general, the focus on relocating manufacturing where it's going to be part of our economic future is one that was a major Biden message. I think the focus on using tariffs in strategic areas where we think either we've been treated unfairly or it's important to our future, like semiconductors, the CHIPS program, electric batteries. Those are, so the overall message done right is one President Biden focused on. But what you see here is the fact that, you know, what might be a good, simplistic, historically rewritten speech in a campaign will ultimately turn out, come down to the effect on the economy. The expression, the devil's in the details. Well, here, the devil is in prices for consumers. the devil's in jobs, the devil's in uncertainty. And what we've seen so far, despite the Trump rhetoric, is that he was inheriting, he likes to say beautiful, a rather beautiful soft landing. People were expecting growth to be over 2%, inflation coming down towards 2%. He has set off an almost unprecedented amount of uncertainty at every level: investor, major manufacturers, small businesses, and a dramatic increase in a loss of consumer confidence. In fact, the conference board, Jake, said that over the next 12 months, it's now the worst it's been in 12 years. That means worse than the pandemic. So remember the United Negro College Fund used to say, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Well, a soft landing is a terrible thing to waste. And so what's going to come down is, what is the actual impact on prices? I think will be very negative for consumers. What will it be on actual the economy, the strength, manufacturing? I think we're already seeing the uncertainty is being harmful. That's going to be the ultimate measure.
So obviously, President Trump has a big picture goal here to bring jobs back to the United States as firms relocate here to avoid these tariffs, to make it cheaper to build in Arizona and Indiana than to build in Taiwan or China. Do you think that will happen?
Again,
yeah, no, he's talking about the UNCF,
a smart strategic way to do it. I think he should have built off the CHIPS program, built off the Biden's IRA. Those use not just sticks, but carrots. They were about incentivizing those locations in the areas like electric batteries, like semiconductors. More we could do on AI data centers, quantum computing, and also just making sure our steel and auto industries are being treated fairly. But I think he has three major blind spots. One is he has no sense of inputs. And I know that sounds like a complicated thing, but look at pickup trucks. Pickup trucks are maybe the favorite truck of many of Trump's supporters. A huge percentage of the parts that come in from other countries. Right. That makes them more affordable. So you heard the same thing from Mattel about making Barbie dolls. So he seems to forget that in order to not only produce things here, but produce them at an attractive price requires a more complicated view of trade. What I hear everywhere from big companies is they have almost a war room on supply. They are worried about supply constraints. They're worried about the prices. They are all worried about passing on the prices. And Jake, why am I here talking to you as a non-White House person? Well, it wasn't that we didn't have a strong economy. The U.S. had the strongest growth. It wasn't that we didn't have strong jobs. We had the strongest jobs of all time. I'm sitting here talking to you because people were unhappy about prices. And it's shocking to me that he seems to care so little about how much basic consumer prices, from avocados to vegetables to iPhones, are going to go up for people, and cars by thousands, maybe over $10,000.
It's pretty funny.
And I just feel like it's really a blind spot. It surprises me politically, as well as being questionable economically. And I don't think things are going to go
pretty
well
funny
for him
that
at all with this proposal.
And I've said this time and time again, like, judging by the policies that he wanted to implement when he was running, I kept repeating the same things over and over again. Everything that he's doing is inflationary. Okay? Mass deportation is inflationary. You're eradicating the low-cost, second-class citizen, permanent underclass labor force without any mechanism of replacement. Now, obviously, I care about the humanity beyond, like, the impact of this on the economy. I care about the humanity first and foremost. But that is what precisely would lead to hyperinflation to begin with. Then also the fucking tariffs. Tariffs are an entry fee paid by the American manufacturers, paid by the American importers. This will increase the price of all goods. It's like slapping on a universal sales tax. Every single thing he's done, every single thing he's done so far has been inflationary. It is wild.
But to seem to not even care about people's 401ks. But I tell you, Jake, I've been talking to people all over the world, and what's troubling is not the stock market, but why the stock market's going down. It's going down because there is massive uncertainty, and it's at every level. And I learned this a long time ago when we went through the debt limit crisis in 2011. All you need for the economy to go weak is for everybody to pause at the same time. Everybody to pause on their vacation, the discretionary spending, and building that next factory. And yeah, he'll be able to do, brags about places that come.
54% tariffs on China.
The proof of the pudding will be in the economy. And I think that he's headed for trouble. And I know what my Democratic peers are going to say, and they're going to have truth on their side. He is using this trade policy to actually raise taxes and prices on consumers at the same time he cuts their Medicaid and cuts taxes for well-off.
All right.
I don't think that's a good economic brew or a good political brew.
All right, Gene Sperling, thank you so much. And later in the program, we're going to get reaction from Republican Senator Jim Banks of Indiana. The White House today pushing back on reports that President Trump told his inner circle that Elon Musk will be stepping back soon.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? What did I tell you? I said he's going to defend Elon.
A political
but,
liability
not a lot.
for President Trump. We'll discuss that. And
what did I tell you? I said he's going to make a statement that's like kind of in defense of Elon, even though he's cutting him out. And that's precisely what has taken place today. But you said he hates losers? Wait, no, he does. This is it. I told you down to the messaging strategy. Donald Trump, for Elon Musk is dead to Donald Trump going forward. The only time he will mention Elon Musk is like lightly to defend him. He will not mention him any longer. For Trump, Musk is a scapegoat and a liability, but for now, he's still useful. Yeah. He'll put the heat on him, and then he'll put the beat on him. He's a fucking loser. He's a political liability. He is not the attack dog that he wanted to present himself as, which is going to be the second thing I'm going to be talking about, which was, as of earlier, the most significant thing that I was supposed to talk about, which is the Wisconsin race. But I'm not done with the tariffs yet because it has been glorious. Smoking on the market pack has been a fantastic moment for me. J.D. Pondon, ladies and gentlemen, he is doing it. Permanent first world genocide. The Treatlerites will all suffer. The suburbs will scream bloody murder. We will disrupt America's global hegemonic trade status. That is right. Are you enjoying the show? Refill your popcorn. You'll love this next part, he said, except you can't refill your popcorn because it's more expensive now. That's right. Even popcorn is going to become more expensive. Just kidding. Corn is like the one thing that's heavily subsidized. So it's probably and made in the United States. That's why it's in every fucking food that we consume. So who knows? But yes, let's take a look once again. One big point amid all the headlines. I was texting with the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, senior Washington correspondent for the CNBC. And she confirms that the 34% tariff on China is on top of the previous 20%. So that means the rate on China will be 54% when the tariffs take effect. 54%. Trump to impose higher than expected tariffs. Markets drop. Live updates. Plan to impose steep tariffs on many countries, including 34% on China, except it's 54%. Just kidding. 20% on European Union, 46% on Vietnam, 32% on Taiwan. That'll never not be funny. 32% tariffs on Taiwan is a permanently funny thing to do. It is hilarious. It's like, it feels like he's doing that for Xi. I don't know what to say beyond. It seems like he's doing that for Xi specifically. Trump also signing an executive order to close the de minimis exemption from China. It's a small amount of goods compared to everything he put tariffs on today, but the de minimis imports from China are north of $20 billion. No more Temu, no more fucking goods being exempted because they're insanely fucking cheap. I'm serious. He's killing his own drop shippers, by the way. He is literally killing his drop shippers. That's what's going on. So respect. Breaking MAGA dad reaction. He's using our economic might as to wedge the equilibrate with other economies. Equilibrate? Yeah. I mean, your MAGA dad is just repeating what MAGA is saying. So that's all this is. Equilibrate is a real word, dumb chatter. Yeah, it's not. It's just not one I've ever used or encountered. Equilibrate? Equilibrate. No, equilibrate? What? Shut up! All right, I'm never using that word, so it doesn't matter. CNBC said this is the worst of the worst case scenarios I covered earlier. CNBC anchor says the market reaction after hours, I've never seen anything like this. This is worse than the worst case scenario in terms of what the market expected. Laos getting hit with 48%, Madagascar with 47%, Vietnam with 46%, Sri Lanka 44%, Myanmar 44%, Bangladesh 37%, Morocco 10%, El Salvador 10%, Saudi Arabia 10%, Egypt 10%, Turkey 10%. My goats are thriving. Fun fact, the Boston Tea Party was a protest against a tariff. Yeah. You guys don't deserve South African wine anyway. Yeah, everything will get more expensive. Every single thing will get more expensive, for the record. Every single thing that you're purchasing will get more expensive as a consequence of this. That is if these are fully implemented. The reason why I say that is if these are fully implemented is because there is one thing that Trump cares about, and that is retaliation, okay? Being unpopular. If the market screams bloody murder and the people are promptly terrified of the price increases that are slated to happen, and they rise up in arms potentially, then Trump might back away from it. He is unstable. He's already went back and forth on this shit. He might just like delay the tariffs or whatever. So who knows? If he were to implement a stimulus check in this process, by the way, if he were to hit stimmies on this, I need you to understand something. If he were to also give stimmies on this, this is full Erdogan. No joke. If he were to expand the welfare state as a reaction to this, it would quite literally be the Erdogan initiative. Hyperinflation with a little bit of money that you're offering to the citizens in an effort to make sure that they don't die. European Commission President von der Leyen will deliver a statement at 5 a.m. Brussels time following U.S. tariff announcement. She doesn't speak in our name. Nice. Tesla truth owner. Tesla owner in Europe says Ursula von der Leyen does not speak in our name. Yeah. Nintendo Switch 2 would originally be a Japanese import, which would have been 24%. But Nintendo just announced that they're moving productions to Vietnam to avoid tariffs. But Trump just announced a 46% tariff on Vietnam. Nobody's getting egg or switch to sad. I think there are a lot worse things to worry about than being able to afford the switch to with what might happen to the what might happen to the American economy. Because not to be too much of an Econ 101 Andy, but like when the cost of goods get higher and higher and people's purchasing power is diminished in the process, company profits go down, there's no movement, there's no growth. When there's no growth, there's layoffs, which cooks you even further. And then you sink further and further away with no way out of it. I'm no stonks freak, but the market charts seem kind of off, like they're not reporting accurately or something. What do you mean? I've said this over and over again. I've said this time and time again. Americans are treatlerites. Treats are the things that hold the treats are the things as the fabric that holds the society together. When jalapeno poppers are no longer $5, you're cooked. People will come out in droves. People come out in arms, dude. Americans are so hyper-focused on the cost of living that they voted for a guy who was saying, I'm going to actually lower the prices by deporting 20 million people. They didn't even care. That's why I kept making the argument that if Kamala Harris were to come out and be like, I'm going to assassinate the Walton family on television, and that is going to lower the price of bread, every American will be on board with it. Not because they love ceremonious extrajudicial assassinations of incredibly wealthy people or whatever, but only because they were like, all right, whatever it takes. That seems fine. And the greatest example that I pointed to was Kamala Harris being like, I'm going to do price caps. You claim you're smart, but you did not predict Taiwan tariff exposed. No, I covered it before. I just thought it was so stupid that it made no sense, that I genuinely didn't think he would do that. Because he's mentioned it before. He floated Taiwan tariffs before, and we all thought it was a joke. Because why the fuck would you tariff Taiwan? Swedish insurer Folksam diverts 160 million Tesla stake. Oh shit. Gamers are now mad that physical copies are now projected to be $90, digital to be $80 due to the production costs, employee compensation, international asset, research consultation, business maintenance ranging from food, employee benefits, janitorial to server costs. Yeah, no, price of wait till the fucking Asmongoldиans realize that games are going to be more expensive as well, with seemingly no fucking larger titties either, which is something that I think they care about. Stop equating food and having a living to fucking treats. It's not treats. It's our fucking food and jobs. No, they are fucking right, stupid. Stop equating food and having a living to treats. I mean, it's treats too. You have to understand. It's fucking treats as well. It's not just surviving. Okay? When I say treats, I mean treats. I mean buying a television every other year that is like marginally a little bit better is a treat. That's a treat. And many Americans do that because that's one of the only places where they can spend their money on, because the important things that actually provide upward social mobility or some semblance of upward social mobility, like fucking college education, is impossible to purchase. Other things necessary for survival, like healthcare, is impossible. Healthcare has become a privilege in this country. A privilege that only privileged people have. That's a treat. Guns are treats, but guns are made in America, so they're fine. You can buy more guns. Most likely. Stop trying to be the friend who's too woke about this. So our jobs are treats. Is that what I said? Did I at any point say that? Why is it that the earwax that you have stuck in your goddamn earlobe, my issue? Why are you making it my issue? Why are you making it my problem? Why are you making it everybody else's problem? It's so fucking annoying. You're like, I didn't understand what you were saying, and I made up my own mind about what you were saying because I didn't actually fully comprehend what you were saying. And now I'm going to fucking freak out on you for a thing that you didn't say.
On that chart. Why is that?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Okay, I imagine that has to do potentially because they're already in negotiations previously with the 25%. I'm not sure if you saw the initial market reaction.
I haven't.
So equity futures slid on the news. You had talked about how we're in a detox period. Do you feel that we're still in that period, or are you starting to get a little bit concerned?
Well, the detox period has nothing to do with the tariffs. The detox period is off this incredible level of government spending that we've had, an unsustainable amount of fiscal stimulus. And look, that's got to stop. That's got to stop. So
this is what I mean.
Can we continue weaning ourselves off of that? And as we see private...
Do you understand? This is what sedates the masses, okay? This is what sedates the fucking masses. Do you understand? And this is an old ass, this is from 2016. It's even worse now. This is what I mean when I say treats. All that shit is relatively affordable, so you think, oh, I can go to a McDonald's. I can get a new household furnishing. I can get a new clothes because it's cheap. And it makes you feel like you are better off. And that is the very fabric that holds American society together. That's what I'm talking about. And the moment that that shit is also expensive because of these actions, the moment, and the reason why all that shit is not expensive, the reason why all that shit is inexpensive is because of free trade. The moment that these things also skyrocket in prices, you have nothing. You have nothing holding it together. You have nothing holding society together. You're like, this is, what good is this? What good is this project if I can't get a fucking new iPad? What good is all this endless bloodshed in the third world? This is what I mean.
Narrow margin issued the reconciliation instructions, and then he also passed a clean continuing resolution on the Senate side.
Is there anything we can do to fight back against tariffs? No, there's nothing you can do. You can't fight back against tariffs by subscribing for $6 before Twitch increases the price of subscription, or for free with a Twitch Prime before Twitch decides to eliminate Twitch Prime. That's what you can do. Just kidding. There's not really anything. There's nothing you could do. I guess leave the United States, but every other market will be impacted by this too. So there's really nothing you can do in general. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. I think Twitch lowered the price of gifted subs.
Interest was deductible, but now it's got to be only on American cars.
So how do you do all this at the same time that market participants, fiscal hawks, budget hawks in Congress are concerned about the deficit? How are you going to have this big reconciliation package?
Well, I think, as we've seen, there's a lot of room to cut spending. So I think, again, where Republicans have incredible unity is on the spending cuts, as we're seeing.
So when it comes to the timeline of all of this, I do notice that now reconciliation, it seems to be an agreement between the House and the Senate that they're willing to consider about raising.
Andrew episode month. Economists in Israel, economic officials in Israel, in complete shock over the Trump administration's decision to impose a 17% tariff on Israel. We are in shock. We were sure that the decision to completely cancel tariffs on imports from U.S. would prevent this move. but it didn't happen. Yeah, get fucked, dude. Get fucked. I mean, it's not enough. 17% is a tiny, minuscule.
So that's when you plan to get this tax bill
They should
done.
have hit him with fucking 100%.
So if we could put both these stories together today, the president comes out with tariffs.
Trump is anti-Semitically imposing tariffs on Israel. Trump is anti-Semitically doing BDS. Who is going... Okay, Forward Magazine article, I'm imagining, okay? Forward Magazine article. Title. Trump stood against boycott, divestments, and sanctions. Now, he does the very same. Subtitle. Is Trump Hamas?
In the CBO scoring, so that will be something running in the background. And as the president said, we've taken in several $100 billion on the China tariffs, but those don't get scored.
Do you feel that you need to have enough revenue raised from these tariffs before this reconciliation package comes to play in Congress?
Well, I don't think we have to have the revenues raised. And look, we're doing two things. Tariffs are going to raise revenues, and then we're also stamping out waste, fraud, and abuse in the government and bringing down the expenses and spending. And we're not going to get credit for either of those with the CBO scoring. So when your audience, when American people see these CBO scores, there could be large, but there is a substantial amount of tariff income. There's a substantial amount of savings.
While all this is happening, consumer sentiment has definitely taken a bit of a dive. Expectations for inflation have gone up. Banks like Goldman are cutting their GDP forecast, saying potentially the Fed is going to have to cut rates, not the good kind of cuts, the kind of cuts because they're nervous about growth. How concerned are you that the timing of all this is going to be incredibly challenging because of how the American consumer, how corporate America is feeling at this moment?
Well, it tells me a couple of things. One, we got to get the tax bill done quickly, because that's a confidence builder. And two, we're seeing sentiment surveys from the American people, but we haven't actually seen them take action. If the households actually thought that there were going to be inflation, if their real inflation expectations had increased, what would they be doing? They'd be hoarding goods, and they would be demanding wage increases, and neither one of those has happened yet.
So at the moment, you're not concerned about some of the soft data we're seeing?
No, I see nothing, and one of the great things, many great things about being a Treasury is we have lots of business people come through, and everything we're seeing in the economy is still very solid.
And executives haven't voiced any of these concerns onto you?
No, there's some idiosyncratic things, but in terms of the expectations actually turning into hard data, none of them have seen it yet.
Now that you're working on the tax bill, and of course tariffs at the moment are out of the way, what else is on the agenda for you for the rest of the year?
Well, we have the Ukraine deal that's coming up. We've gone to maximum pressure on Iran, so a big part of Treasury is national security. And then we are doing a big push on deregulating in a smart, safe, and sound way the regulated financial institutions, which is going to allow for the private sector, not the government sector, to grow.
When it comes to international, where are you with Iran, Ukraine and the mineral deal?
I believe we may have a team from Ukraine coming over as soon as the end of this week or the beginning of next week. Ukrainians have, I believe that they've hired counsel. And what we did was after the incident in the White House on, I believe it was February 28th, we were going to sign a 4-page deal that was parameters of understanding. And at Treasury, we took the opportunity to move forward to the big deal. So this is the exact same deal that would have resulted from the 4-page signature deal. So we've just fast forwarded, and we didn't want to lose any time because we believe this deal is so important for the American people, for the Ukrainian people, and for the peace process.
So it sounds like in the next 2 weeks you're going to have this deal.
You know what's funny is coming is the only thing you will have soon.
When it comes to Iran,
Okay,
since you mentioned
the
that,
only
I know you're gonna
tariff-free
focus a lot on
action
international
you'll be able to do is
now the
basically
tariffs are done
sit
and you
there
have the tax deals
and
underway.
masturbate.
When it comes to Iran, do you think we could see secondary tariffs, secondary sanctions?
Well, we've already seen sanctions. For the first time, U.S. Treasury sanctioned a so-called teapot refinery, which is a private sector refinery in China, and they are the buyers of the Iranian oil, and we could see more of that.
Wow, interesting. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, you've been very generous with your time today. We really appreciate it here at Bloomberg TV. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Joe Cayley, of course, that was the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The sense I got from him is when it comes to these tariffs, it is a ceiling, it is a cap. Says to me that this administration is willing to negotiate with trading partners.
All right, Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern live at the White House with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Thank you so much. And of course, we did hear from President Trump the suggestion that if countries would like to see exemptions, they're going to have to lower their rates or terminate their tariffs, to use the word of the president. We'll have much more on this shortly and get some political analysis from our panel this evening. Still ahead here on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
Isn't it funny that Trump tariffed Israel but not Russia? Bro, what kind of trade do we have with Russia? 2.1 trillion wiped from the stock market, and Trump wants to raise 700 billion in these tariffs. This is going to be so stupid. Help, I'm in a do not come state. There's no such thing. Brave warriors, you will always be able to come. They will never be able to stop your revolutionary optimism. They will never be able to stop your power, your prowess. Your sexual prowess will be the only weapon you wield against all of these tariffs. After all, at the end of the day, even if you do not have materials to consume, we still have our imagination. And until they put a tariff on imagination, you will still be able to come, and you'll be coming so hard. You'll say, please, Mr. President, I don't want to come no more. I'm going to come. Oh, man, what a day. What a day. Canada and Mexico, targets of Trump's previous rounds of tariffs, and are the United States' top trading partners were not mentioned for additional tariffs in the president's charts in a detailed country-by-country documents handed out to reporters in the Rose Garden. If Canada and Mexico are left out of the country-specific tariffs announced by Trump today, and it looks that way, this will be a significant capitulation, even as both nations continue to face tariffs plus sectoral tariffs such as on steel and aluminum as well as on autos. The majority of the nations listed for reciprocal tariffs on the documents distributed to reporters are developing economies. They will include world's poorest nations, South Sudan, Burundi, and Central African Republic, as well as countries in the throes of war, e.g. Sudan. This is the shit you should get banned for. If you don't come, China has won. That's what the best they're saying. Yeah. Russia and Belarus are the only former Soviet states not included in Donald Trump's sweeping new reciprocal tariffs. Ukraine faces a 10% tariff, EU 20%, China 34%. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how. What is this? Genetically engineered cat girls are possible, scientists say, but we lack funding. Is this still coming, Elon Musk? Of course. Yeah, this is before he got comstered. Correction, Russia is not the only country subjected to tariffs. I regret not subject to tariffs. North Korea is also exempted. U.S. trade with North Korea is heavily embargoed, but it's not zero. Iran, also subject to heavy embargoes, is on Trump's tariff list at 10%. Quick clip from Chomsky on treats.
Is to maximize profit and market share. And they also have a goal for their target, namely the population. They have to be turned into completely mindless consumers of goods that they do not want. You have to develop what are called created wants. So you have to create wants You have to impose on people what's called a philosophy of futility. You have to focus them on the insignificant things of life, like fashionable consumption. I'm just basically quoting business literature, and it makes perfect sense. The ideal is to have individuals who are totally dissociated from one another, whose conception of themselves, the sense of value, is just
Agent
how
47.
many created wants can I satisfy? We have huge industries, public relations industry is a monstrous industry, advertising and so on, which are designed from infancy to try to mold people into this desired pattern.
The aforementioned treats getting hit. Oh, I already talked about Vietnam, yes. The U.S. will tariff products from Vietnam at a 46% rate. Could heavily impact Switch 2 pricing, possibly globally. Nintendo shifted Switch 2 production from China to Vietnam, Cambodia to avoid tariffs. Others include 34% tariffs on China, 49% on Cambodia, 24% on Japan, 20% on the EU, and more. It's like Donald Trump heard. It's like if Donald Trump heard Nintendo's announcement this morning and was like, I'm going to give a much larger tariff to Nintendo. Everything is Tesla. Everything computer. No Nintendo. You thought you could bring the Switch 2 to a different market. Well, guess what? That market will be hit by tariffs too. Anyway, everything is Tesla. Everything is Nintendo. Apparel stocks getting hit. Yeah, clothing will take forever to reshore. Yeah, so, I mean, here's what Ryan Grimm is saying, right? And this is correct. North America could genuinely be self-sufficient, though it might take us like 10 years to get there. It would be a brutal transition, but it would be a good thing in the end. Hard to see the U.S. do it solo without a huge collapse in standard of living. But anyway, Trump seems to expect us to do it in a few days. Good luck to us. Like, every country has no country can be fully self-sufficient, okay? I don't know why Ryan Grimm is a Jushaist, okay? Ryan Grimm is upholding the immortal science of Marxist-Leninist Jushaism, which I don't agree with. I don't even think it's necessarily a good thing to be entirely self-sufficient. I think it's fine to offshore certain products, or there's obviously not, like, what do you do with rubber? You know what I mean? What are you supposed to do? Invent it? And this is why he says North America and not the United States of America, because he's talking about Mexico and Canada as well. But even then, I think ultimately, there is not all matter of international trade is bad. But in the short term, I don't think Americans that only care about treats and the cost of living in general will allow this kind of market shock to go on without severe repercussions. Because, as I've said, it's the only thing that holds the American society together, okay? The only thing that holds American society together is the fact that the labor aristocracy still benefits from the uneven exchange from the global South, where no matter how low prices get, there's a lot of shit that you can purchase that make you feel like you're in a better position overall. When you can't purchase those things now, all of a sudden you're going to be like, what's the entire project for? What are we doing? America only cares about the short term, so this it makes sense. This will piss them off. There's also the other side of this, which is like, how are we certain that this will boost domestic manufacturing? Not even in a short time frame, but in any time frame whatsoever. And how will that be beneficial? How will that be beneficial for American labor in general? Because let's say you bring back manufacturing, but now Americans are in an infinitely shittier position overall, and they're desperate to take on any job whatsoever. There's no curbing back on a lot of the big ticket items that Americans must purchase for upward social mobility, or services that they must hire for upward social mobility, or healthcare, right? Or housing, shelter. If you don't fix any of those problems and you bring back manufacturing, people are in an incredibly desperate predicament where they'll go and work at these factories with diminished labor protections, with diminished worker protections. They still can't afford the treats that they want to afford. They're in a worse position overall. It's unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable, both in the short term and in the long term, especially when so stupid, especially without trying to find a solution to the cost of living crisis for all of the important necessities, all the important things that you need, goods and services that you need for survival, upward social mobility, and things like that. And if the manufacturing capabilities of America is boosted, and yet it doesn't actually yield better labor protections or higher wages in general, and it's just mostly automated manufacturing anyway, and the labor force that still works is working in worse conditions overall, then that's not a benefit to the American economy.
Sense of what we know so far about this. There's still a few unanswered questions.
I like this. Trump's tariffs. What just happened?
But finally, we got the detail on what Donald Trump meant by this Liberation Day. And let me just kind of start by showing you these bars are how high those tariffs, the US tariffs, are on various different countries around the world at the moment, or rather before Donald Trump came into office, and a quick kind of bit of revision on where we've come from so far. So threatened tariffs on Mexico and Canada. They were repeatedly threatened, repeatedly rescinded or lifted, but they might well be back again. Who knows? But for the time being, they're
50% tariffs on the roughly 6,000 people who live in St. Pierre and Miquelon. Yeah. That's really fucked up. St. Pierre and Miquelon have been cooking us for far too long. It's time. It's Jover. We have to punish them. Their endless thirst for super profits knows no bounds. It's time to drop the act. They've been fucking us over, dude. The British Indian Ocean Territory is getting a 10% tariff. It's uninhabited and only has a U.S. military base. Yes. They didn't say thank you hard enough.
Gone. We know we got an extra 10% tariffs on China, China 1.0, then another extra 10% tariffs on China 2.0.
The herd in McDonald's Islands are completely uninhabited. Population 0. Guess we're going to tariff the seagulls. It kind of feels like a White House intern went through Wikipedia's list of countries and just generated a list off of that with no further research. Pictured, the place which is, according to the Trump White House, apparently imposing 10% tariff on the United States. Note the total lack of any human settlements there. Yeah, the whole... This is the amount of tariffs that they're fucking... The entire principle behind, like, this is all the tariffs that they're charging us, by the way, is completely made up. It's completely made up. You might think, no way, dude, the administration is going to make a bold declarative statement that undermines the way that the global economy has been designed for the past multiple decades. There's no shot that they would just, like, ask an AI chatbot to develop numbers. And the answer to that is yes, they will do that. And I think they did do that. Like China imposing tariffs to the United States at 67% is not correct. It's just a lie. How did they arrive at that number? They arrived at that number because they made it up. They fucking made it up. What do they mean by this? Trump assumes VAT, like value-added tax, is a tariff. And if you, as long as you claim anything and everything is a tariff, like domestic tax decisions that are implemented by sovereign nations, formerly sovereign nations, are now considered a tariff on American goods. It's not a fucking tariff. The value-added tax is not added on. The value-added tax is not added on to just American goods. It's added on to everything by sector. Sometimes by whatever the good is, or whatever the service is, whatever the, whatever the thing that you're purchasing is, regardless of its nation of origin. Whether it's produced domestically or produced overseas, it does not matter. And that's something that people don't comprehend about this. And that's why the fine print says tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. That's why it's not tariffs. That's why everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean tariffs? I had to dig deep to try to comprehend what he meant when he was talking about trade restrictions back in the day, if you recall. And we found out together that he actually was talking about VAT, for example. Like he kept saying VAT, they're doing value-added tax. You know what a VAT is? That's a tariff. That's a tariff. It's not real. They want to make currency manipulation a thing. I mean, bro, I don't think he gives a fuck about VAT. He wants to tariff them, and he will. Even if they get rid of VAT, Trump will keep the tariffs. Yes, Israel is a great example of a country that that seemingly completely eviscerated their tariffs right before this. Shut up, Piker. You are embarrassing yourself. Explain to me what you disagree with respect to what I have said so far. Did I crack it? I think I figured out at least the chunk of the math. It's trade deficit divided by exports. EU exports. Wait, what? Israel exports 22.2, imports 14.8, deficit 7.4. 7.4 slash 22.2 is 33. No. Vietnam exports. No. Account created 11 minutes ago. Following says 12 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and assume this is a sock account that doesn't have any good ideas at all.
You might call them. And we're now kind of waiting to find out what happened next. And we finally did find it out. Let's just start. There are two parts to this. Okay?
It's so funny because those guys will make a sock account after being banned numerous times in the broadcast for being a fucking idiot or racist. And then I'll ban them, sometimes without looking at their background, looking at whether or not they've been in the chat for like 12 minutes, or if it's a new account or not. And then they'll clip that and go, Hasan bans dissent. He hates when people disagree with him. And it's like, you didn't even disagree with me. You just didn't even bring up anything. You made a sock account and you just said, you're wrong. You're out of your element or whatever the fuck. And then you get banned with your sock account and then you fucking cry about it. I'm apolitical, baby.
Okay, so first of all, there is going to be a 10% baseline tariff. So you see all of these bars go up by 10%, including, of course, the UK. But that, as far as the White House is concerned, is just a baseline. And then on top of that, there are different tariffs for different nations, what they call reciprocal tariffs. And they say they've gone through the numbers. They've looked at not just the tariffs that other countries around the world are charging the US, but also what they call non-tariff barriers, so other things. And they've worked out, by the way, Canada, those Mexico-Canada tariffs might well come back, so we might well start from that position. But reciprocal tariffs might push all of these bars, or will push all of these bars up considerably higher. So just look at how the picture of trade and tariffs in the US has changed dramatically as a result of these measures which are coming in the next few days. And just to give you a few highlights of what we're talking about, so you could look, for instance, over there at China. So China, that's a 34% reciprocal tariff, but it takes the total amount, provided that goes on top of the existing tariff, it takes the total amount up above 50%. And you're talking, you know, when tariffs are going above 50%, that makes any trade very, very difficult and far less likely to happen. So that's China, but you can probably see here Vietnam as well. And the point here from the White House has been to say, listen, lots of Chinese goods going into the US, but also going through, being Vietnam and Cambodia as well, being conduits for goods to go to America. And the point here from Donald Trump is that the US wants to reindustrialize. And so it's all about trying to make things domestically. But finally, look at the UK, 10% on the UK. And for many people here, obviously, it is a big increase on where things were before, only a few percent, the average rate for the UK. But that goes up to 10%. It is the best rate that anyone has among...
Oh, my God. I thought that was a joke. I thought one of the chatters... I thought when one of the chatters said the U.S. government classifies Quebec's Bill 96 as a foreign trade barrier, I thought you were joking. Oh, my God. U.S. government classifies Quebec's Bill 96 as a foreign trade barrier? Oh. It's so funny that America is trying to dominate the world by trade. And I feel like this will blow up in America's face. Like, what do you mean? Other countries are not allowed to impose any sort of domestic agenda that we decide is not good? This is like claiming that DEI initiatives implemented in like another sovereign nation is now being considered a fucking trade barrier. Like accessibility is now considered a trade barrier. You have to eradicate it. This is America wielding its trade power as the consumption engine of the planet in a way to dominate other countries and whatever the fuck they're doing. It is so crazy. Yeah, you can't speak French in Quebec. Sorry, that's a trade barrier. I've decided being a francophone is a trade barrier. What are you going to do about it? You know? It's good stuff. I mean, it's funny to also put this up there because this will cause the French Canadians to riot. Like, they really, really care. They care quite a bit about being able to speak French. That's kind of a big deal, I think. Quebec. Merde.
Amongst any nations. In fact, the best rate that any G7, any leading economy in the world has, and certainly better than the EU, all of whom are having to pay an extra 20% in total, so 10% and another 10% on top. But even so, all of this will potentially diminish the amount of trade going on around the world and diminish the amount of stuff going into the US. And finally, it's worth just saying, what was the stock market reaction? Well, this decision was made after markets had closed, but we can look at the futures market. This is the NASDAQ futures market, and look at what happened. It went up a little bit after the announcement, and then it's come down quite considerably. So a market reaction there, which implies that when markets open...
Wait, is that why Asmagul's chat was like, oh, I'm sure Hasan is going to be fucking eating crow when he finds out that the markets are actually up? Is that why they were saying that? Because they only saw the first part? I saw a bunch of comments in his chat talking about me being stupid and wrong. Dow Jones getting decimated. Dow futures tumble more than 700 points. S&P 500 futures lose 3% on Trump's tariff rollout. That's why he said, don't look at the markets. That's why he said, don't look at the markets. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't look at the markets. For one day, for as long as it's red, don't look at it. When it's green again, we can look at it. Gifting subs in this economy? Yeah. It's a recession indicator. How much Chinese do you know? Yeah, we already talked about the uninhabited islands that are getting tariffs apparently because they've been stealing far too much from America. That's funny.
In Asia, and indeed when they were open across the US and Europe, we're going to see some falls to come as people respond to this.
As I was saying, the market dipping didn't matter and claimed that it's the price of goods and that people will care about. I mean, he's not wrong about that statement. It's just that if he assumes that the tariffs are going to lower prices on shit, he is insanely wrong on that. But then again, it doesn't matter because he's just defending Trump, and that's what people want to hear. They don't want to fucking hear analysis. They don't want to hear what will actually happen. They don't want to hear what is currently happening. They just want to hear someone go, Trump is based. That's what most people want. And there are liberals that also, when Kamala Harris was running and when Joe Biden was president, there were liberals who wanted to hear that too. I, unfortunately, never give that to them. I don't give the liberals what they want when liberals are in charge, and I certainly don't give the conservatives what they want when they're in charge, which is precisely the reason why so many fucking people develop resentments towards me, even if they arrive at my position far too late. That's it. Like if I was a squishy lib who just wanted to give liberals everything that they want to fucking hear, then I would be talking about how Cory Booker is amazing. That's why I'm saying I'm the one true king, if you will. The one true apolitical king. The real apolitics.
Ed, take a seat. I've got another question for you. There is more coming out of the White House right now, senior White House officials, etc. Trump is to sign an order that closes the de minimis loophole. This is according to an aide. Tell us why that is significant and how it might affect a nation like China, for example.
So this is on top of all of those things we were showing you. De minimis basically means that for really small, kind of low-value items that are going in and out of countries, a lot of that stuff just isn't charged a tariff. So what is a tariff? Ultimately, it is just, we're going to charge you 20% on everything that comes into the country, although it's the recipient that actually pays it. But for fast fashion, for items that are going in that are relatively cheap, and this is a big thing for China, you've got companies like Shein who are sending stuff relatively cheaply from Guangdong and different parts of China. Right now, that's not subject to any tariffs. Donald Trump said earlier on, so when he had one of his early we're going to impose tariffs on China, he said, we're getting rid of de minimis. But then what happened was that suddenly, in airports around the US, you were seeing massive big piles of goods that no one was quite sure what to do with, because it's an enormous administrative challenge. And I think that, Anna, is the bigger issue here. Raising all of these tariffs, different tariffs on different countries, and a kind of extraordinary smorgasbord of different numbers we've just seen, and Donald Trump, held up this chart of all of the different numbers. It is likely to just increase the amount of work that it takes for America to collect these tariffs. But the point that Donald Trump wants to make, can I show one more chart, as a bonus thing? But the point that Donald Trump wants to make is that back in a long time ago, the majority of federal revenues came from tariffs, raising money from tariffs. And right now, that line is basically down, close to zero, kind of only a few percent. And his point is always, rather than raising money through income tax, couldn't we raise it again through tariffs? And I'll spare you the next charts, but point out that ultimately, that is really, really tough to do. It's really tough in the modern world of 2025 when you have, welfare states, when you have Medicare, when you have, standing armies that are quite expensive. You can't just raise all of your money through tariffs. No one has been able to do that. And so that is the challenge that he's faced with right now. But what he wants to do is to be able to say, we're going to try and reindustrialize, hence all of those tariffs on China, on Vietnam, on Cambodia, and we're going to try and raise a bit of money from it in the process. And I think that's the selling point. But what
It's so funny to look at tariffs as a percentage of total federal revenues and try to bring it back to like the 1800s. Because global trade does not look the same. And it's not even, it's not, like global trade is not the same anymore. Me not being an economist, the de minimis loophole closing is the one thing I'm in favor of. No, they're destroying Temu, Shein. They're destroying the MAGA merch economy. That is one thing that I predicted and laughed about quite a bit. Be on the lookout for a CNN spot with that blonde reporter with the glasses that used to work at Vice. She will go back to those, I'm calling it now, she will go back to those MAGA merch stores and she will talk to them in a couple months. And they will be screaming bloody murder about how Donald Trump ruined their fucking business model. Just wait. I'm telling you right now. Yeah, Ellie. I think her name is Ellie Reeves. Yeah. She always goes to the MAGA. She always goes to the MAGA stores. Remember? That's like her thing. She goes to the MAGA stores for CNN all the time. What do you mean? You act like there won't be donations from exemptions? You think Trump gives a shit about some fucking sweaty loser MAGA sycophant that opened up the third MAGA merch store in some fucking backwater town? Yeah, dude, he really will protect those guys. What are you, crazy? He despises his base. When will people learn? He hates them. Go to every fucking ghost town. There's a MAGA store merch. Every single goddamn ghost town has a MAGA store merch. Maybe one, maybe two, sometimes 4 or 5. Yeah. Ellie Reeves will straight face ask them, Donald Trump destroyed your business prospects by making dropshipping functionally illegal. Do you regret voting for him? And they will dead ass wipe their fucking tears and go, no, that's my glorious president. He's going to make America great. I still believe him. Just wait. When that CNN hit comes out, I know you guys will be the first to send it to me. Okay? You'll send me that CNN hit. Some of the MAGA store merch owners will say, it's not the greatest. I don't like it. I voted for him. This is not what I thought he would do. But there will be at least one or two, most likely a woman, okay? The most rabid QAnon moms will be saying, wiping away their fucking tears, they'll be going, it's okay. This is one of the funniest graphs I've ever seen. America's views on foreign trade. Trump has made Americans more pro-free trade than they have ever been. Only 14% say it's a threat to the economy. This is also kind of devastating, too, because free trade, opportunity for economic growth is not great. The type of folks say God must have a plan for something greater for me because Trump is fulfilling the work of our Lord and Savior, so it must be what he wants. Yes.